Hereby call the special meeting of April 22nd, 2025 to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Beck.
Here.
Vice Mayor Crawford.
Here.
Councilmember Edwards.
Here.
Councilmember Stokes.
Here.
Councilmember Dunn.
Here.
Councilmember Bullock.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Our only item on the agenda today for this portion is a call for executive session. Do I have a motion to enter into executive session?
No motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, we are in executive session. All right. All right, let's settle down there, folks. All right. White shirts being a little noisy back there. I hereby call the April 22nd, 2025 study session to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Beck.
Here.
Vice Mayor Crawford.
Here.
Councilmember Edwards.
Here.
Councilmember Stokes.
Here.
Councilmember Dunn.
Here.
Councilmember Bullock.
Here.
Mayor, you have
Thank you. The only item on the agenda today is an update on code revisions for Union Vacation Bank. For the presentation, I will now turn this over to city staff.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, this evening we have Human Resources Deputy Director Brianne Nelson and Teresa Brenholt, who will present a necessary code change due to a recent Arizona Supreme Court case ruling regarding time off for union business. Brianne.
Good evening, there we go. All right. Thank you, Mr. Darwin. Good evening, Mayor and Council. We are here before you again. It was just a few short months ago that we went through the MOUs with you, and now we have another matter to talk to you about, which is a proposed code amendment. So, with me, as Henry said, is Teresa Brenholt, HR Manager for the city, and she has worked very diligently on this code amendment and all of the processes that will need to be put into place should this code amendment pass. So let us walk you through it tonight. So we're talking to you about the historical practice that we've had here at the city, the legal landscape that has recently changed. We'll share with you the code amendment, though it should have been in your packet as well, and then should it pass this evening, what next steps HR and the labor groups will take part in. So, as of July 2024, for many years, the city of Peoria had what was called union release time, and that was a bank of time that the city provided that we had negotiated with each of the groups that they could utilize for union business. So the amount of hours per labor group ranged from 414 all the way up to 1,600 hours, depending on which group you're referring to. Now, union release time could be used for union business, and it was authorized by the executive groups for each of the labor groups or the union president. And it could be used for representing employees during disciplinary matters, prepping for union negotiations, charity events, or training, anything that the union deemed to be union business. So, unfortunately, that all changed in July of 2024, because on July 31, 2024, the Arizona Supreme Court ruled in the Gilmore Gallego case, all right? And this was with another municipality, not Peoria, but the main issue was union release time as it existed in that municipality violated our state's constitutional gift clause. And what they said was that the use of public funds needs to provide a tangible benefit to the city and ensure goodwill through use of these hours. But the way that URT was working, the state Supreme Court ruled that just having goodwill was not tangible. So that changed the dynamics of how we could authorize the use of these banks that we had already negotiated with our 4 labor groups. So what did we do? We immediately discontinued the use of union release time. So 1 week later, on August 6th, we met with the groups, provided them information, and let them know that we needed to cease and desist the use of that. And since that time, the city has not authorized any use of these leave banks. But the timing of the case allowed us to meet with 3 of our 4 labor groups as we had begun union negotiations in September. So through the course of the fall, as you may recall, we were able to completely eliminate any reference to union release time in our contracts to be in compliance with the no Arizona Supreme Court ruling. However, we were not in active negotiations with PPOA, but we have not allowed them to utilize any of those hours since that time. But this fall, we will work on eliminating the language itself from their contract. So, following negotiations, when those were all done and settled, we met with each of the groups. We've worked on what could we do in order to allow them time that they may need. And so what we came up with was a concept to allow members to voluntarily donate their accrued vacation time into a group bank. And then the union presidents could authorize the number of hours and who could take from that bank to take care of union business. So we've developed a proposed policy and process with each of the groups, and we have met with them. We've been very transparent with them on what this process would look like if the code was able to be changed. So here we are with this code for your review. So in summary, we are requesting to add subsection H, and this would allow individuals to donate their accrued vacation time on a voluntary basis for union business. And the amendment, I just want to be very clear, it must be a voluntary gift of their own vacation time into this bank. So, should this proposed amendment pass, you will see it as item 10C tonight on the consent agenda. And upon approval tomorrow, we will finalize the policy, we will finalize the process and usage with each of the groups in order to implement the program right away so they can be utilizing these hours. We've streamlined the request and approval process, and we now have a good way to document the usage of these hours. So pretty straightforward, but in order to allow us to utilize this new program and implement the usage of these hours, we do need to have an amendment to City Code Section 6-5. So that is our brief presentation tonight.
Mayor, if I may, just add
Please.
a little bit of extra commentary with respect to the current state of our relations with the unions on this issue. So because of the Supreme Court ruling and the uncertainty it created for us in continuing to provide city time for union business, all of the union leadership have been using their own personal time and basically donating their personal time to the benefits of their constituents, to their members. So I just wanted to take a minute and to acknowledge the fact that those who are in union leadership are donating their time to this point, and that in my view, there is a benefit to the city for having a good relationship with our unions. I don't necessarily agree from a public policy point of view. I won't challenge the legal finding of the Supreme Court. From a public policy point of view, I think it makes sense for us to have a good relationship with our unions. And I think this, in having conversations with union leadership, all of the union's leadership, I think this is the best we can do given the ruling of the Supreme Court, and it allows us to afford an opportunity for the union representatives to have some ability to use time that is not their own to represent their members. The members can contribute to their union's ability to represent them with the city.
Awesome. Any questions from anybody? Yep. All right, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And with that, we are adjourned. Good evening and welcome to Peoria City Council meeting. I hereby call the meeting of April 22nd, 2025 to order. Those who are able, please stand for the invocation by Bishop Scott Schlattman of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we give thee thanks for this time that we have to gather together. We are grateful for this great city that we live in, for the sense of community that we share one with another. Father, we'd ask that thou will be able to open our hearts this evening, that we will be able to have a sense of unity and love in our hearts. Even though we might have differing opinions in some things, we'd ask that thou will be able to unify, to be able to allow us to share openly and share with love. We are grateful for the goodness of this community. We are grateful for the continual blessings that thou bestows upon it. And we'd ask these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If anyone would like to address the council about a matter, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Beck,
Here?
Vice Mayor Crawford,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn,
Here.
Councilmember Edwards.
Here.
Councilmember Stokes.
Here.
Councilmember Dunn.
Here.
Councilmember Bullock.
Here.
Councilor Youth Adamshaw.
Here.
Councilor Youth Tawari.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. If anyone would like to address the council about a matter, please submit your speaker request form at this time, which can be found at the entrance of the room, to the box located next to the speaker. We're going to do this like to the box next to the lectern. I realize that we want to give very, very specific details. This is your final call for the speaker request form. Presentations. Actually, I think we should do CFDs. Okay. So we will do two CFDs here. 1, 2, 3 CFDs here. First, I would like to call the Mystic at Lake Pleasant Heights Community Facilities District Board meeting to order. Will the clerk please note the roll? We will now move to the consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are routine in nature and will be enacted in one motion unless enacted for removal received prior to, specifically for the Mystic at Lake Pleasant Heights Community Facilities District Board meeting. Do I have a motion to approve this consent agenda?
Mayor, I motion to approve the consent agenda for the MCFD regular consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please vote.
Councilmember Finn, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Motion passes.
And it passes 7-0. Thank you. Next will be the MCFD regular agenda. We will now move to the CFD's regular agenda to introduce new business. I now recognize staff to introduce 5R and 6R.
Thank you, Mayor. We have with us Sean Kendall, our CFO. Sean, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. We're here to present items 5R and 6R. I have with me Darren Hodge, who is our financial advisor, and Paul Gales, who is our bond counsel. So just a quick little bit of background. Mystic CFD was formed in 2020 for the purpose of financing El Mirage Road and other major road and wastewater infrastructure. The district sells bonds which are used to acquire the infrastructure from the developer before conveying that infrastructure to the city. The district levies a property tax that is paid only by the property owners in the district and uses the revenues to pay the debt service on the bonds. In 2023, the district issued general obligation bonds for the acquisition of 2,607 linear feet of El Mirage Road, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And before the CFD can issue bonds, it is required to provide a feasibility report that outlines the infrastructure to be purchased. So that is the first item tonight. Item 5R is to call a public hearing for the feasibility report. The report includes the feasibility and benefits of certain public infrastructure, a map of the location of the infrastructure and the area that benefits, an estimate of the cost to acquire and timeline for completion, and the plan for financing the public infrastructure. So, while this bond is only purchasing a segment of El Mirage Road and a segment of Westland Road, you'll see in the feasibility study that we have several projects listed, and that's all of the projects that are approved for CFD bonds. Mystic has a little over $61 million of remaining bond capacity, and the developer is able to be reimbursed for their project costs through either CFD bond acquisitions or through impact fee reimbursements, but not both. Okay, so developer gets one or the other, but not both at the same time. Since the impact fees are more restrictive, they're only allowed for certain items on it. The CFD bonds are allowed for the entire project. We are currently only issuing bonds for the portion of the projects that are not covered through potential impact fee reimbursements. That's why you'll see that we are only acquiring another 1,187 feet, roughly, of El Mirage Road and about 68 feet of Westland Road out of this. So we're only picking up small chunks of it because that's all the dollar amount that we have in the bonds available. The next step then, item 6R, would be to approve a resolution for the sale and issuance of the general obligation bonds. We're asking an amount not to exceed $2.5 million, but we really expect that to be closer to about $1.8 million. The final amount depends on the interest rate that we get when we price the bonds. With that, we'll purchase the second segment of El Mirage Road that I just talked about, and we'll purchase the first segment of Westland Road within the project. Debt service on the bonds will be paid from secondary property tax at a levy rate of $265 per $100 limited assessed value. Final maturity for the bonds is July of 2047, so it's a 22-year term. That matches up to the original bond sale that we had 2 years ago. And the developer provides a standby agreement with a letter of credit, whereas if the $2.65 does not generate enough revenues to cover the debt service on the bonds, the developer steps in and pays that difference. So it's a maximum rate of $2.65 that we have. Our timeline for this is we anticipate pricing the bonds on May 1st, and then we'll close the bonds on May 15th, at which point we'll receive the proceeds and be able to reimburse the developer or purchase from the developer. And with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Councilor Crawford. Councilor Bullock.
You first? Okay. Thank you, Sean. Just to confirm, just so from my understanding, only residents of the Mystic community by their secondary property tax rate will pay for this debt, correct?
Correct.
So myself living outside Mystic will have no effect on me at all?
No.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Crawford? No? Good? Okay. Anyone else? All right. Thank you. All right. You said you covered 5R and 6R in that, so
Yeah.
we're just going to go through that whole
Yep.
process. Okay. So this is for both. I will now,
No, you have to do them separate, but do 5R first.
All right.
And then 6R. Man,
okay. I know. Can't wait till Kevin adds 8 of these. Where's he at? I will now open up the public hearing for item 6R. Do I have,
Sorry, 5.
5R, sorry. Do I have any members of the public that wish to speak on 5R? Seeing none, I will now close the public hearing on 5R. Do I have a motion to approve 5R?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please vote.
Councilmember Finn, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Motion passes.
Passes 7-0, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve 6R?
Motion to approve
Do I have,
MCFD 6R.
do I have a second?
Second.
Please vote.
Councilmember Finn, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Motion passes.
And it passes 7-0, thank you. There being no further business, I hereby declare the CFD Board meeting adjourned. I would now like to recognize City Manager Henry Darwin to introduce the presentation for Stadium Point development.
Before we get started, I'm sorry, Mayor. Agnes, do we need to re-adjourn the regular meeting? For this regular meeting, we just adjourned the CFD meeting.
I would, just for the record.
Sorry, Mayor.
We will adjourn the CFD meeting, and we will re-adjourn the regular meeting.
Thank
You
you.
just trying to get me to use this tonight?
I'm doing my best, Mayor. You're doing a great job. Thank you, Mayor, Mayor and Council. We have a presentation this evening. It's agenda item 7, and it's an update on the Stadium Point development. We have Deputy City Manager Mike Faust here to give us an update, and I'll have him introduce our guest. Thank you.
Manager Darwin, members of the council, thank you for having us come speak tonight. I'm joined at the table by Rory Sandstrom from Steinhauer Properties. We're also joined in the audience by Greg Steinhauer from Steinhauer Properties to talk about Stadium Point project. So just as a reminder, during the January 30th council workshop, this was included in our economic development strategic initiatives. We were asked to come before council, provide an update. The development team has been gracious to give us some of their time and join us. I'll also note that Sunday was the 4th birthday of the development agreement that started this project. So with that, we're going to do a bit of a history lesson first, because only 3 active members of council were on when this development agreement was originally approved. So we'll touch on that real quickly. We have some excerpts directly from that presentation back in April of 21. We'll talk about activities that have been completed to date, current status, and then next steps. Rory and I will jump back and forth, so bear with us. We haven't really rehearsed, but we'll see how this goes. So by way of orientation, Stadium Point at P3 really was a big vision for a big project in the P83 district. The intent was to create a world-class vertical mixed-use development that exceeded all the other offerings in the West Valley. There's nothing like this in this part of the city, and it really set to create an anchored Class A office environment that really tailored to high-wage employment to Peoria's talented folks who we know are out commuting from the city. It would be the first live, work, play experience in Peoria. So the vision for the project is a big, significant project. So with that, you see the investment to that was significant. I'll have Rory touch on what the original concept behind that was in terms of scope.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Peoria Council members. It's great to be with you. It's great to see some of you again, and it's nice to connect with some of you for the first time on this project. I think context matters. When we go back to the RFP was issued in 2019, and certainly as Mike had indicated, the mission was to create a best-in-class, best in Phoenix, best in West Valley, mixed-use campus that certainly emphasized Class A space, because as we all know, there's no Class A space in the West Valley, and there are many folks that commute from this great community to other parts of the valley. We were selected as the master developer, and it took us about 14 months to negotiate a development agreement. In that time, of course, COVID hit, and then other kind of follow-on events took place after that development agreement was negotiated that I think that is part of the narrative here, which we'll get to. The original vision was a campus that included Class A office space, a full-service hotel, Class A fully amenitized multifamily apartments, and integrated retail, dining heavy throughout the campus. And of course, public amenities, right? This is a fully amenitized experience that is very walkable, that we believe the original vision and the vision to this day will compete with the best space in the valley. The proposal at the time that is in line with the scheduled performance in the DDA, the first document, envisioned a multi-phase build-out. That included, at the time, 2 multifamily pads, building structures, 1 office tower, associated structured parking with that tower. An additional phase would include a full-service hotel, and then ultimately a second office tower as demand allowed.
So just to build off that, as Roy had mentioned, there are 2 agreements that came before council, the DDA, the development agreement, and then an IDA, right, an implementation development agreement, and we will touch on both these. These first several slides are really excerpts directly from the April 20th, 2021 council meeting where the first DDA was approved. So as Roy had touched on, you had a phased approach to build. Inside of that, the city had some obligations as well. The city was going to fund, and while the developer was under construction, they would construct with a reimbursement mechanism inside of the agreement to do work in 83rd Avenue, to do work for both Stadium Way and Mariners Way, as well as utility relocations. The city also had some responsibilities inside of that to relocate a raw water well that sits in the southwest corner of the sports complex. So that needed to be relocated and has been done so. Additionally, in the development agreement, the city had the responsibility to fund the project development fees. So inside of the CIP, there is a standing line for about $10 million of expense that just floats out there for reimbursement when the time is appropriate. Inside of the first agreement, and we're going to touch on timelines for both agreements today, so we're just trying to set the stage, and the next couple of slides will go into the implementation agreement. But when the first development agreement was approved in April of 21, there is an implementation table inside that document that kind of lays out the framework. Now, it is important to note that the agreement does not have distinct milestone dates. It has durations based off of a commencement date, and there's a trigger point for that commencement date. Additionally, the development agreement allows for flexibility. Given the magnitude of a $500, $600, $700 million development, the strategy at the time was to say, hey, we don't know where the market's going to go. We don't know what struggles might arise. So there's some flexibility in here, but there's milestones associated with each of them. The dates that are here, when it says expected date, This is based on the adoption of the DA in April of '21, what could have reasonably considered the timeline for execution at that point. And again, we'll come back to the evolutions that have come, but when that was adopted in April of '21, it was reasonably expected that by late '23, you were really done with the offsites. And then you would have been into the first phases of vertical construction, including, at the time, it was conceived to be multifamily and one of the Class A offices, and then associated parking, and then some integrated retail and dining experience. So per the original agreement, it was contemplated about this time you'd be vertical, late '26, you would be then occupying that space. And then subsequent phases of hotel, retail dining would then filter in as the project continued to build. But it was always conceived that the timeline would be somewhere, in construction, starting in the, early 2-3 year frame, but with the ultimate end build out being somewhere in that 9 to 10 year period to build the entire project. So that was the concept when it was first done. As we switch though, get past this period, Rory will have more context with that. On November 15th of 2022, a second agreement was brought back before the council. And there was a couple of things with that. Number one, that agreement spoke to some challenges of just getting the project activated, some delays, I think, on both sides of the equation, and ultimately the agreement acknowledged, hey, there's been some hardships with the implementation of the DDA, and as such, we need to do a bit of a reset. That's the first thing it said. The second thing it did is it solidified the government property lease excise tax, the GPLET, which was an economic incentive tool specifically earmarked for this area of the city and this project in particular. And then the third thing, it did a light touch to the implementation table. It didn't really, no egregious shifts. It did, I think it pulled in one milestone by 6 months, it pushed another one out by 6, but nothing of significant alteration in terms of that implementation schedule. I'll let Rory go through kind of the changes in implementation, and then we'll come back to the actual milestone dates that have since been established.
Thank you, Mike. So the IDA is referenced here, and I'll fill in a bit of the timeline as well. So the onus was to initially identify a developer that could create this experience. And Steinhauer Properties has a long history of creating these Class A experiences that are largely mixed use. And we have specifically we have an expertise in office. But we also have, stabilized asset portfolio in both Los Angeles and Seattle that spans a mix of uses, inclusive of Class A office, which again was of particular importance to the council at the RFP, through the DDA, and also in the IDA, but also hotel. The IDA, the second agreement, as Mike highlighted, implemented certain items that needed to be implemented if you go all the way back to the initial negotiation leading up to the DDA. By that point, when the IDA was approved and negotiated, leading up to that approval, certain market conditions had clearly kind of cemented themselves. One was the repercussions of COVID, and the lack of office activity had started to become very apparent to both, to certainly to the developer, but also I think the market as a whole. It was observable in the market that leasing was significantly down, valuations of office properties was going down, and so this required us to collectively come together and clarify a few items. As you see depicted in the picture on the screen now, this is, I think most importantly, what we believed was what the market would support to capitalize and build to create this environment that we are still incredibly enthusiastic about, that we fully believe in, that really we believe is still in line with the original vision as put out in the RFP. That includes one residential tower instead of two. We still envision 2 office towers. and a 4-star hotel. What is changed here is really what we believe in our expertise is going to create the vision. And the vision is incredibly important, especially for an office user such as a Magnificent Seven technology tenant or a TSMC or somebody who supports, for example, the TSMC effort here in North Phoenix. And what do we mean by that vision? We mean certainly building out those public amenities, creating the environment where somebody can stand on the site and say, I get it. A site selector can say, I want my people here, right? I want them to work here. I want to be able to have access to the hotel and the shared amenities, and then certainly have some folks live in the residential apartments. So to clarify, in the IDA schedule performance, which is really the governing document now for timelines, we believe that what the market will finance is a combination of the multifamily and or the hotel. The goal, of course, is to build everything as expeditiously as possible. But in this environment, even to today, if you were to talk to experts in the Phoenix market who lease office space, it is still a challenge. And so we are, in our effort to create this vision, that means you have to build everything else around it while we continue to market to identify an office user who would take this space. So currently, the vision, the multifamily vision is 350 Class A, best-in-class, fully amenitized units. The hotel is approximately a 210-key, full-service Hilton Curio hotel. We have an LOI from Hilton for it to be a Curio. Which is what we collectively call a construction ordering or kind of the construction phasing 1A and 1B. Of course, horizontal improvements to the site, civil improvements to Mariners Way and Stadium Way, and creating those common area amenities. And then, of course, the office is still an emphasis for us, and we fully believe in it. We have to identify that user that's going to say, yes, I want to lease this space. A couple other examples that we believe what has changed. While the cost to construct has gone materially up, while the interest rate environment has gone materially up, and valuations of assets have gone down, this is the new technology corridor of Phoenix, and that is an incredibly powerful statement. TSMC and their $165 billion commitment, this is the closest Class A product to that site. This is the closest urban center to that site, in our opinion. And that is great. And we believe that as that market catches up and those best-in-class technology jobs move to town, that office users will select this site, that all of those visiting executives will stay in the hotel, and that folks that are employed by TSMC and other technology companies will select the site as well. In closing, I provide one case study that we think rings true of this market. If you look at Intel and what happened to Tempe in the Southeast Valley in the 80s and 90s, this is exactly what's going to happen in this corridor over the next 10, 20 years. And this site is the best-in-class site for this mixed-use vision to be realized.
Thanks, Rory. As we look at the agreement, again, the IDA came before council November 15th of 22. Inside of that, it's solidified kind of a roadmap forward for execution timelines and expectations. So what you see in this chart is the expected and then the actual milestones that we now have etched in. And the expected is really based on when the agreement was adopted in November of 22. It was theorized that getting to the commencement date, and the commencement date is approval of the final plat, it was conceived to be about a 6-month window. So when you see that expected column, it's all based on 6 months post that holiday period in 22. The expectation was to bring forth the plat in July. We had a lot of change in the city, a lot of movement in the leadership team. Essentially, then the new leadership team comes on. I remember sitting in the room, Mr. Darwin looked at us and said, the final plat will go to council on November 5th. And it went to council on November 5th as delivered. So what you have as an actual commencement date, the milestones by which everybody is held to in the agreement, is 30 days post that 9/5. So you have a referendum period to address any possible disputes. So October 5th stands as that timeline. Inside of the agreement, again, there's flexibility in what assets the developer can bring to the market first, and those timelines differ. So it says if you're going to build Class A office first, you have 36 months to bring forth the construction drawings for review by the city. The developer has told us that we're opting for the optional column, and the optional column was, I want to lead with either the multifamily or the hotel. They have the same timeline. So what that says is you have an 18-month period from the commencement date until that 18-month window to submit your construction drawings. And then they have to start construction within 6 months of us approving the construction drawings. Okay? We'll walk through where we are, but in terms of status, but I just want to walk through the milestones and expectations. So by that 18-month timeline, April of 25 was the 18-month milestone for those construction drawings. Inside of the development agreement, there are options that the developer can exercise in terms of extending milestones. So there are 4 90-day unilateral extensions that the developer can exercise, and a 5th 12-month extension, which costs them $100,000 to extend. They have exercised the first of the 4 extensions. So that moves that April of 2025 date out to July. And then you see in the red subsequently the dates that push from there. So that kind of sets the stage in terms of expectations and where we are. 2 agreements, a development agreement originally delivered in April of 21, implementation development agreement agreed to in November of 22. The clock officially starts ticking after Mr. Darwin says we're going on 9/5. That sets the clock, and now we're rolling forward there. Now we meet with the developer every month. We have conversations about status, so we're going to walk through in the next couple of slides in terms of what is the current status, what has been completed to date, and ultimately what are the next steps inside of this project. Rory, if you don't mind you walking us through the efforts to keep council apprised.
Yes. Thank you. So in terms of a formal kind of update, we think that a letter staff requested, and the developer did promptly provide a letter to council on July 31, dated July 31, 2024. And again, I go back to kind of context of this project. You know, we have a portfolio that of stabilized properties that are almost all around and integrated with stadiums, convention centers. This is what we do, and we're very proud of the fact that every project that we undertake, we own all development risk, up to as close to being ready to pull permits as possible, and that is what we have done in this project. We have self-funded every endeavor, soft cost, design, you know, of course, working with the city to get to this point. Throughout the life of this project, we felt it was important to acknowledge a list of items that candidly has been frustrating for everyone, certainly us. We are not in the business of sitting on a project and not developing. What matters most is for us to develop a best-in-class project and deliver it as expeditiously as possible. And we continue to work under that mission on this project. In this letter, we highlighted a number of items that have affected market conditions and our ability to expedite development. One is certainly the pandemic. Another is a significant change, as mentioned, in office market leasing. That lease demand is significantly lower, and the cost to construct anything, whether you're building a single-family home or an apartment or an office building, has gone up significantly. The volatility in the market, certainly interest rates, but also the overall volatility in the market creates uncertainty, and capital allocators do not like uncertainty. So that's created challenges. Real estate values across the board for commercial properties, and especially office, have gone down. As a result of that, in the commercial markets, equity investors, the capital allocators, from the large institutional funds through sovereign wealth funds, family offices, the folks that would write the equity check to fund any of these elements, or all of them, have demanded significantly higher returns in exchange for the market uncertainty and the volatility. That has created challenges. The example given in the letter, at least for that I think really sums up what is observable in the market as a challenge, is the interest rate environment. The Wall Street Journal prime rate, it's quoted, you can look it up, and you can look up the history of the prime rate. In April 21, that prime rate was 3.25%. As of the dated letter, that is 8.5%. And any development for a developer like us, or anyone who undertakes a commercial, a public, or private development, your cost is going to be higher than the prime rate. That's just the reality. Nevertheless, as stated in the letter and as stated today, we have full confidence in this project. We believe in this vision. We believe that this site cannot be replicated. The 200+ events a year, in addition to spring training, creates an environment that is unique and is an incredible opportunity for a hotel, for office, and for a multifamily project. We are fully committed to the city and all stakeholders to see this thing through and develop it.
In terms of what we've accomplished to date, there's two sides of the ledger. I think both groups have worked, to advance the overall project. The city has undertaken a handful of things which were preparatory in nature to support the development. One of which, and I've mentioned this a couple times, we did approve the final plat as it came through. That's what started the commencement date. But we had several capital projects that needed to be initiated in order to facilitate the project. So we mentioned earlier, we had an obligation to move a raw water well, which we have moved. We've incurred about $3.1 million of expense in moving that. We have not finished the project. We did not necessarily need to tap the groundwater at this point, so we set the balance of that project aside, but that means we're defraying about $4 million of additional cost in that project. Additionally, there's a sequence of events that had to happen in order to create more parking at the sports complex, because essentially this project consumes 17 acres of that site, and the property will self-park, meaning they will generate parking to meet their own on-site demands, but then we had an obligation to be able to park the complex as a whole. And so there was two steps inside of that process. The first of which was to relocate the maintenance building that was on property. We did that. That was an $8 million expense, $7.8 million expense. It wrapped a couple of months ago. Parks and Rec team is very happy with that property that the team has delivered for them. The second phase of the project we put on hold though. And that part of the project, if you know the complex well, right, there's two half fields that sit on the south side, kind of middle of the park. The intent was to make those half fields full fields and then take down two full fields on the northern part, one on the Mariner side, one on the Padre side, and convert those into surface parking. We made the conscious decision in '23 to push the pause button on those particular projects. It was about $10 to $12 million to do it. We wanted to make sure that everything was heading in the right direction. We were already out of pocket about $11 million with another $4 million to go. So we decided to just hit the pause button. That project is still floating on the books. We're contemplating it for different reasons, but because of just the uncertainty and the challenges that the 17-acre project had seen, we chose just to hit the pause button on that. And in that interim period, we continue to work with the developer on their advancement of activities.
On the developer side, we have gone through a number of efforts, again, in line with requirements in the DDA, the IDA, and the scheduled performance to prepare the site to break ground as soon as we can. In order that's on the slide, there was a requirement to design, permit, and bond certain off-site improvements, design the on-site civil improvements, all of those in the renderings, all of those beautiful amenities that will remain public have been designed. The civil work actually is very close. As soon as we have line of sight to to a capitalization of any of the vertical elements. That of course includes civil improvements as well, and we will move forward with those civil improvements as quickly as possible in the matter of ideally just a few months. We have gone through design review, and that design review was completed for the multifamily project. But more broadly, we have funded and completed a schematic design effort for all elements. All vertical elements have gone through a schematic design that includes the office, the hotel, the multifamily, and all of the common areas. We have established, for the hotel specifically, we have established that letter of intent with Hilton, and all the initial fees have been paid. Hilton, by the way, cannot express how excited they are to bring the first full-service hotel to Peoria. To date, our capital allocation, as we indicated, we self-fund all of the pre-construction, all the design efforts to as close to a shovel-ready project as possible. That number for us is north of $10 million of capital spent on this project. And there is also, with regard to the IDA and the implementation of the GIPLET, for this project, we believe we defined it collectively to be very clear that this was based on public improvements. There has to be public benefit for the reimbursables that we will receive. And that is, we submit receipts not only through design, but also through construction and stabilization of the project and those elements. To date, that's about 1.3 million of reimbursables that we ultimately will receive later down the line. And as noted on the slide as well, we are in compliance with all of the provisions in the DDA, the IDA, and the schedule of performance.
If I could just, for clarity, because sometimes when we talk engineering, we lose nuances in the words. So construction drawings are the documents that we'll use to review and issue a permit to. Schematic design and design reviews are important design elements within the project, but they are, electronic in nature. There's not construction level documents. And so when the project is funded, I think we've loosely talked about that transitionary period from schematic design to a set of construction drawings is, somewhere between 3 to 5 months, depending on the particular asset. So I just don't want to get lost in the fact that when the developer finds funding for the project, that then launches that process of a 3 to 5 month kind of window to create those construction drawings, submit them to the city, then the city and the developer will go back and forth reconciling any comments before they move on. I don't want to get lost in that little nuance. You want to touch on current status?
Yes. So the current status, the focus is on identifying the equity partners that want to invest and partner with us, as well as the city and all stakeholders in this project. We've had strong interest from debt platforms, that is banks, that's private credit funds. So much effort has gone on behind the scenes to tee up everything we can to move this project forward, again, as expeditiously as possible, as soon as the equity investors have been identified and commit to this project. As mentioned, as Mike also identified, schematic design is a significant part of the project. It is only one part of the project, certainly, but we believe that if you look at the multifamily project, because we've gone through design review, we do have to resubmit drawings to the city, but we believe we could be in for construction documents as quickly as about 12 weeks on that. Other elements, because we've gone through schematic design, but we certainly have a design review process to go through with the city. That's probably a 4 to 6 month process for the other elements. And then, as noted, the permits themselves, 3 to 5 months after submission. And then, as I went out of turn there a bit, but as noted, the multifamily project, because of the design review completion, can be quicker.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I forgot we had this slide in there. We've been going for a while. So just to that point, I don't want to, because of the flexibility that exists inside of the IDA, I'm very mindful not to say that this specific date needs to be hit, right? There's milestones in there with extensions. I think the key takeaway for me inside of this slide that says, if the developer was fully funded, they have civil drawings, they could start the offsites and get going. But, I mean, if we would look at that stack, even if they had full funding tomorrow, you're talking by that stack, 7 to 9 months before you're going vertical, even if you head down that pathway, okay? This is the last slide, and then we'll take any questions. So, Roy, if you don't mind, just walk us through the next steps from the developer standpoint.
Yep, absolutely. The focus is funding the project and going. We are prepared to move very quickly as soon as we identify those equity investors who want to invest with us. As mentioned, we do have multiple interested parties for the debt financing, one of which is visiting the site on May 1. And of course, we will continue to communicate with staff and electeds whenever requested. But as Mike noted, I think early in this presentation, we have a standing monthly meeting that we absolutely intend to continue with.
And with that, Mayor, Council, we're happy to take any questions that you might have.
Councilor Finn.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm a little delayed on my video feed here, so I apologize about that. But Roy, this is really just kind of for you. I just heard you say that you're prepared to move very quickly, and I apologize if I'm going to be blunt, but I'm going to be blunt. You said that you're prepared to move very quickly, but what I felt I heard were all of the reasons why this is not a viable project anymore, and I'll tell you why I say that. You said that the construction costs are significantly up. We're dealing with tariffs that are probably going to impact that as well. Interest rates are up, and demand is low. So when all of the companies that my organization has purchased, those would have been all of the reasons that someone told me why we're not moving forward. So my question to you is, how do you tell me that you're prepared to move quickly when you don't have funding and I just heard all those things from me. I'm struggling a little bit to understand that.
Sure. Thank you for the question. Part of our effort, we're a vertically integrated development company, and what does that mean? We have construction folks on payroll, and we've got great visibility to the markets that we develop in. Part of that capability is the ability to be nimble in challenging environments. And I also think it speaks to at least the collective effort that was envisioned in the DDA and the IDA to focus on the elements that we believe are financeable, and that is specifically the multifamily and the hotel. No doubt, there are challenges with tariffs. I can't speak to that. We certainly have channel checks weekly, monthly with multiple GCs and subs. So far, the indication on that is it's unclear. Yes, no doubt, tariffs cause price disruption, but the flip side of that is demand goes down. So where do we end up? We cannot speculate there. But the elements that are financeable are the multifamily and the hotel. And yes, costs have gone up, but we've also made adjustments to the design of those elements to be at market. And what does be at market mean? It means that we are in communication with some of the best operators. For example, Greystar is going to operate the apartments for us. Their local group here is phenomenal, making sure that we are aligned on where they believe rents would be versus the cost, as just one example. And there certainly are more. But I agree with you. It's a challenging environment, but we believe we will persevere, even in a challenging capital environment.
And I guess my response to that is we have a 17-acre asset that's somewhat, at this point, frozen as you continue to try and deal with this. Before I go back on mute and turn it over to the rest of the council members, I would request that we get monthly progress reports, written monthly progress reports, sent to the city manager, Henry Darwin, to be passed on to council. I would respectfully request to be maybe apprised on progress on a monthly basis.
Understood?
Are you agreeing to that? Or is it understood?
We will facilitate as much communication as I think is reasonable with the council and the electeds as well as city staff.
You just made a lot of friends with that one. I'm going to say this. I appreciate your enthusiasm. I think that the reality is the office market is completely dead in the city of Phoenix. You and I have talked about this right before I got elected, right? Right after I got elected, and I think 3 or 4 other times since then. The project, as far as the hotel and the apartments, are needed in that area, frankly, and I think everybody would love that in the city of Peoria. The reality, though, is it's been 2.5 years, and I keep seeing construction drawings or drawings, concept drawings with a thought process that someday that the office market's going to come back. It's not. And it's time to kind of face reality, because what's happening is, in a way, you're Mike pointed this out, you're setting on a product that could greatly benefit the city of Peoria citizens, our taxpayers, our neighbors, our citizens that we're entrusted to take care of. And you've been given this asset to utilize, with a promise that we're going to get a return on investment. And the things that I hear are, 5 potential extensions, and that's in every single one of these phases. You mentioned, and I'm not trying to be on you, because I like this project if it was actually under construction today. But the reality is you haven't changed in 2.5 years. I still hear the exact same pitch, exact same questions, that we're going to go out and get financing and do those types of things. We have 3 projects that are in there, 3 restaurants that are in there. They're absolutely crushing it for not just Peoria, but for the entire West Valley. And there's tons of opportunity, yet if we can't get financing now in this project, when do you think that that's going to happen? Because I don't see the tariff market or the economy or the interest rates dramatically changing to where the world's going to change over the next couple of years. It just doesn't happen that fast. It's not a reality. So by us taking from and sitting on this asset, it's hindering our ability to be able to take care of our job of being able to take care of the taxpayers of this city. So do you see that changing? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about other partners that are in the valley and actually have you thought about maybe just giving the project back to the city and actually walking away from it? I mean, that's the reality of it. Have you thought about maybe actually going, hey, this is too much for us and we just can't, we're not gonna be able to do this, and for the good of the city, we're actually gonna, step back? Have you thought about those conversations?
The answer to your last question there, Mr. Mayor, is we have no intent to give it back to the city. We believe.
Then when are you gonna build? So my question would be, I don't wanna hear as soon as possible. Nobody wants to hear as soon as possible.
Sure.
What is the date that you're gonna be under construction and you're gonna start moving the ball forward? That's what everybody wants to hear. That's what everybody wants to understand.
Yep. My response is we will build within what is laid out in the schedule of performance in the DD and the IDA. That is the guiding, that's the guiding documents of this project. With regard to your comment about the 3 restaurants on the other side of the stadium, I think that proves what we have been trumpeting for a very long time, which there is pent-up demand in this city. It is a tremendous
Okay,
city.
pause right there. You're in a prime spot. They're not in a prime spot. They're crushing it, and you haven't even turned dirt. So do you think that maybe the project and the capability of what you guys are bringing to the table is not financeable in this? It's just unreal. It just doesn't seem realistic.
I think dining is the most financeable commercial asset class in the market today. No question.
Oh, okay, so, but you're just saying that they're showing over there that it's successful,
Yeah.
and they're not in a prime spot when it comes to traffic counts. They're off a street, right, so they're off Paradise Lane. You're on a prime spot, and yet we don't see any change. We don't see any dirt moving. We don't see any forward movement. I continue to hear the same conversations about how we're talking to financing. We've got another meeting next week. I mean, it doesn't make sense. 2.5 years later, we're still having the same conversation.
If I go back to the RFP,
They literally, hold on a second, we didn't even turn dirt on that project. That literally has been dirt. It was a parking lot when we first had that conversation.
Yeah.
So they literally turned dirt, constructed, and are just absolutely crushing all their other restaurants. And what? We haven't even done anything at this point?
With regard to those 3 restaurants, absolutely. I think it's a phenomenal asset to the city of Peoria and the broader Northwest Valley. When I go back to the RFP, the city put out an RFP identifying these uses as the best and highest uses of the site. It was not another dining establishment. It was a high-density, mixed-use campus that would define Peoria. And there's risk in that. There's tremendous risk in that. And that's what we do. If you look at our portfolio, and we'd encourage anyone to please
But
come up and
I-
tour
I
those
don't-
assets.
I care about Peoria, I don't care about the rest of your portfolio. Nobody else in here or watching or across our city cares about any of your other portfolio.
I
So-
think
So
where
I
that,
understand that language, I understand that's how you guys are looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
What people care about is what you guys are doing in this city. So you have a city asset of 17 acres that is worth tens of millions of dollars throughout this process,
Mm-hmm.
and the return on investment could be hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in tax revenue to the city
Mm-hmm.
if you were actually doing something with it. I mean, but
Mr. Mayor, what I would point to with regard to the RFP and where our expertise kind of, crosses, the value we bring to the city is there was an RFP process. And we competed against several other groups that had different visions to the site, and we were selected, and we went through a negotiation for a development agreement, and the council approved the DDA the first time 7-0, and the ID was a 6-1 approval. So I respect your opinion, but we beg to differ. We think that this site and this vision is the best and highest use of the site.
so you think you think an office product is actually going to come back in the future?
If I could just tie in. So, Mayor, Council, whether or not the developer believes or the city staff believe that the office product is the most viable use for that property now, I think what Rory's trying to articulate is that the city commissioned an RFP through an open bid process. And so the developer cannot just come in and say, I'm going to get rid of all the office on this property and essentially go a different direction, right? Because the deal that was struck was under the auspice of that RFP. So they do not have the discretion to go make that change. Now,
Okay, so pause for a second. Have
Yep.
you come back to the city and said, hey, we would like to change this asset, this part of this asset, and actually look at dining or other commercial capabilities along those areas where you have office products?
That's a great question, Mr. Mayor. I would have
I
to
know,
put that-
that's why I asked it. Have you or have you not? That's not the point. I don't need to be flattered. I'm asking you a serious question. Have you come back and done the work, because you have this property that's ours?
Yeah.
Right? So have you done the work to actually try to return an investment to the city?
My serious response to your serious question is that has to come from the city side. We do not have the capability. We are operating under what?
Meaning you can't think of outside the box and actually have a conversation to say, we would like to change this because this is what we can actually get financed? Because after 2.5 years, it doesn't seem like you're getting anything financed.
if I could, and I don't want to defend Rory in this case, in this particular application, because the city was the drafter of the RFP, we've had very candid and difficult conversations with one another on the assets of that. Changing that asset means undoing that deal, and we've had some candid dialogues of the implications of that pathway, and ultimately, based on those pathways that are available and the options that are there, Steinhauer Properties has said, given that dynamic, we're going to work with inside of the DDA and IDA that's been negotiated and agreed to.
Councilor Dunn.
So I was one of the council members that was serving when this came before me. And I had quite a few candid conversations with my colleagues, with the past administration, you know, the heads. And my concern back when you guys were proposing this was the Class A office space. I didn't think it was a good idea then, and I don't think it's a good idea now. In fact, I voted no. I was the lone dissent. I find it really, I know we need that asset in Peoria, and it's the hotel, great idea. I was always really excited about the restaurants, and as our mayor said, you know, the other restaurants are doing very well. But that Class A property, I really felt that it was not the right move then, and it's not the right move now. So I also find it hard to believe, like, here we're going out and we're answering this RFP, and we're gonna do all this stuff, but we don't even have the funds to do it. That's a hard pill to swallow. So anyways, I just, I don't know how this is gonna turn out, but I really hope that you guys will do what's right and what's best, not only for, do what's best for the city. And if you guys can't do it, I hope that you will come to the table and be willing to make some changes, because it is something that needs to be fixed. That's a valuable asset. That's all I have to say.
Councilor Bullock.
Thank you, Mayor. Hey, Rory. As I've been here 3 full months, so obviously wasn't here back then. I mean, I read about it. So Councilmember Finn and the mayor and Councilwoman Dunn kind of took some of my questions. So at some point, anything, I'm a small business owner, nothing at your size. At some point, you reach that fork in the road and you say, you know what, it was a smashing idea. We got killed by the market. It happens to everybody. So at some point, great concept, wrong time. Every business at some point, especially you're 10 million in, we're 11 million in, you look at it and say, you know what, we've reached that fork in the road, we're gonna pull the plug on it. Or come back, as has been said, and say, we just need to renegotiate completely. Apartments are the hot thing right now. Let's just build some really pretty apartments and a workout facility and some restaurants, for example. Have you established that fork in the road where you say, if we don't get financing, because you can't keep $10 million, that's no matter how wealthy your company is, $10 million is a lot of money, and your carrying costs and that add up for the city as well. At what point, or have you established that where you say, hey, bye, I'm making this up. December 31st of 2025, we don't have financing in place for what the RFP requests, we're pulling the plug on it, or going back to the table to negotiate, we're just gonna put some pretty apartments there. You can't keep carrying $10 million, regardless of what the city is doing, I agree with that. Have you established that point, because you have to pull the plug at some point, or something great happens? Have you reached that point yet inside your company discussions?
That is not a line of questioning that we have contemplated inside this company. We believe in the flexibility, was contemplated for a reason and approved. The DDA was actually approved 7-0. It was a unanimous approval. The IDA was a 6-1 approval. I'm not trying to be dodgy or cagey. All I can indicate is from our side, we are operating under a DDA and IDA and a schedule of performance that outlines a lot of specific requirements. That includes the uses as identified. We would entertain a conversation initiated from the city to hear, what suggestions you may have, but that is not on us, right? With regard to a fork in the road, we, for the elements that we believe are going to create this vision that are financeable even in this market, we continue to get good feedback as indicated. The debt financing, we have, strong indications of interest in the debt financing. We simply have to find the equity, and nothing is simple and nothing is easy. But for now, we are going to pursue getting the equity financing in place and moving forward with the project. From the city side, I cannot contemplate or I'm not going to speculate on what the city would like to do, but we, of course, as we meet every month, we're open to hearing ideas and conversations from the city side.
I appreciate it, and quite honestly, and again, I'll be compassionately blunt with you. I want to see you succeed.
Thank you.
I really do. I want every business to succeed because it creates a great community, generates tax revenue, and we all go about our merry lives. It's wonderful. We want to see you succeed.
Thank you.
But to everyone's point, there has to be some, again, you reach that fork in the road to go, this current plan, as beautiful as it sounds, is not feasible in this market. Bummer. I have two offices for my company. We are giving up one because half of our engineers now work from home. Okay, it is what it is. We're closing one of our offices, releasing to somebody else. It was a decision we had. We reached a point that if we can't get employees come back to work by June 1st, we're nuking the office. We all agreed, nuke the office. We're just getting rid of it completely. Okay. So that's all. And that's something we can probably talk about later, is to be able to work with the city and come back to you and say, hey, look, what is going to be financed? What's hot right now? What will make money for you so you're successful and we realize our investment and our return on investment, and maybe that becomes just great apartments, for example. So I'd be interested in that discussion outside the scope of tonight.
If I could just add, Mayor, Council, we have had some of those conversations, and I don't think there's a time or place to get into the depth or the challenges of those conversations. There's a lot of nuances inside of the agreements, the pathway of an RFP to those and how that goes. So we have had detailed conversations. We could not find a path forward on what that alternate direction looked like, and so ultimately, there's an agreement that's binding on both of us, and we both looked at each other and said, look, we have these commitments, we see the project, we understand what it is, and we continue to talk monthly on what that looks like. So we'll continue those dialogues. I imagine after this conversation, we will renew a portion of those conversations, and if there is a viable pathway then that we can collectively reach, then by all means, we'll be back in front of the council to have those conversations. Until that time, there is a structured agreement in which the relationship moves forward, and I think Steinhauer Properties will internalize the conversation that's been had here, and then ultimately we'll continue to convene with one another and determine the most appropriate path forward.
I just don't see how it's a viable project. I don't see in the concept that you guys have right now and how you guys think you're going to get financing right now in this market for 2.5 years. I've heard the same thing. It's unrealistic. So if you're going to be open, have an open dialogue with the city and literally try to find a solution. Whether you're figuring a solution how to stay in or be a part of it, we're willing to work with you. And I'm not addressing you, Rory, I'm obviously addressing your boss, right? The problem is if we don't get this moving, we could literally be looking at 2032, 2034. You guys could be taking, 5 on every single one of these, 5 extensions on every single one of these. It's not a good way to do business. It's not. And I think you guys know that, but the financing is not there to do this project. It's not here now. It's not going to be here in the future. Anybody in the capital markets, this type of project, it's just not feasible. Not in Phoenix, not anywhere in the United States. So, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Disappointing. We will now move to the regular consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are routine in nature and will be enacted by one motion unless a request for removal has been received prior. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mayor, I move we adopt the consent agenda as stated.
Second.
Please vote.
Councilmember Finn, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Motion passes, Mayor.
And it passes 7-0. Thank you. Let's take a 5-minute recess, actually. Okay? Thank you, everyone. We will reconvene. All right. We will now move to regular agenda, introduce new business. I now recognize City Manager Henry Darwin to introduce 28R.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, item 28R, we have Deputy City Manager Kevin Burke and CFO Sean Kindle, who are going to discuss the possible adoption of a resolution to sell and issue general obligation bonds. Oh, I don't see Kevin. Has he abandoned you already, Sean?
Yeah, he said.
He's got it, all right. All right, I'll hand it over to you then, Sean. You're in charge.
Okay.
You brought the wrong bow tie tonight.
So tonight, once again, I have Darren Hodge from PFM, he's our financial advisor, and Paul Gales from Greenberg Traurig, he's our bond counsel on this. So tonight, we're talking about, we're looking for approval of a resolution to authorize the issuance of up to $95 million in GO bonds with a top rate of 6%. We expect the bond sale to be more around $85 million, but we wanted to give ourselves some room for it. Just to remind you on this, these bonds are voter approved, so we have the authorization from both the 2005 election and 2008 election. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but we have voter approval from those. The projects that we have on this, there's pictures for 3 of them up there, 3 of the larger ones. We have Lake Pleasant Parkway between the 303 and the CAP. We have the municipal, the police municipal multipurpose building. And then we have 67th Avenue regional drainage are 3 of the bigger projects that are in this bond sale. There's also several smaller projects that are being funded through these bonds. The debt service on the bonds comes from property tax payments, and we can finance these, we can handle these bonds without any increase to the property tax rate. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get there. Just to let you know, our capital improvement program, so for fiscal year 26, the proposed capital improvement program is $572 million. About 27% of that is anticipated to be funded out of GO bonds, so this is a good start toward that. That's only one of our funding mechanisms. We also use PAYGO monies, which is reserves and monies cash that we have on hand, impact fees, utility rates, transportation sales tax funding for things, and then some other outside sources, whether it's grants or other government participation, as well as revenue bonds on some of the water and wastewater stuff. So our bond utilization on this, we are drawing from 3 different questions that were asked in both the 2005 and 2008 voter authorizations. One was for water, wastewater, and drainage projects. One was for streets, bridges, traffic, and transportation projects. And one was for public safety and operational facilities. The majority of this bond sale is going to be used on streets, bridges, traffic, transportation. That's at Lake Pleasant and some other projects, particularly up there in the Peoria Innovation Core. We're also using water, wastewater, and drainage. That's where we're getting the 67th Avenue regional drainage. And then the public safety and operational facilities included in that is that multipurpose building, as well as some other public safety projects that we have. So this just shows the authority that we have from past bond sales and how much we've used to date. That orange that you see on the slide is how much has been used to date. The green slivers are what this proposal is for, to cover. So you can see we're getting, on some of our authorizations, we're getting pretty close to using them up. So it's something to keep an eye on. But one thing to remember in this is that bond authorization does not mean we have funds available for it. It just means the voters have given us the authority to sell bonds. It is still our responsibility to be financially stable as we sell those bonds and to make sure that we don't oversell, that we don't put ourselves too far into debt with things. that we manage that. And so in light of that, City of Peoria has had the same overall property tax rate of $1.44, that's between primary and secondary, for over 15 years now. And we have managed our bond sales to keep that rate steady throughout that time. This bond sale is no different. We fully anticipate that that tax rate will continue to support the bonds as we go forward. We have no intention of raising that rate or changing it. That doesn't mean that we're not going to collect more taxes. Property values go up, we grow as a city, and more properties come into the city to be taxed. So we do have additional revenues, but we're not changing the rate. So it's really no different than we have a sales tax rate. You're going to pay one level of sales tax, but if it costs you $10 more to buy that same product, you're paying more sales tax on that. Same thing with property tax. If your house value goes up or your property value goes up, you're going to pay more tax, but the rate has not changed. We've kept that steady. We also want to point out, just last week, we received notice from both Fitch and Moody's that they have affirmed the city's AAA rating for its GO bonds. That's the highest rating possible from the rating agencies. That means that we can achieve the best borrowing rates that are out there. So we're the highest rating that you can get. That gives us the lowest rates that are available for us as we sell the bonds. So what we're looking for tonight is for approval of Resolution 2025-49, which gives us the authorization to sell the bonds and to do the pricing, get all the documents in order to make that sale occur. Our plan is to sell the bonds on April 29th. That is not set in stone. That's our plan right now, but we've all seen the volatility in markets over the last few weeks. If things change significantly, we have the option to delay that sale or to go to a different route with that. But right now, it looks like we're in good shape to go ahead and sell on the 29th. And then we would close the bonds on the week of May 13th. And with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Councilman? All right, call the public on this. John Forsyth.
Good evening. I am John Forsyth. In democracy, I think the people should know a little bit more about this $95 million, more than at least 24 hours. We're working on assumptions. Now, we just talked about with the project at P83 that we're working in a slowing economy. So this has to be taken into account. Slowing economy means that tax rates will be going up. I know I have a combative relationship with Beck. So he's going to say that I'm using misinformation and lies. I have no reason to lie here. Numbers are facts. 24 hours is a very short period of time. $95 million is going to be forced upon the public to pay. If the levy rates aren't high enough, levy rates are going to go up. $8.2 million debt load per year equates out to $120 for the 67,504 Peoria properties. So these tax bills, whoever looks at them, nobody does. There is line item after line item. So it just gets buried in a tax bill. South Peoria is going to be hurt more than North Peoria. We all know that. The $95 million is proposed 3 projects. They're proposed. They're not set in stone. What if they change? What if this council determines it wants to use some of that funds for the new helicopter? Nothing's stopping it once it's authorized. Now, I do know that $60 million goes to this $140 million that the city pledged to the state to build out the north sector. We're improving land that we don't even own. Who does that? What guarantee do we have that the city is going to be able to purchase it? If a private investor goes in there, that private investor can purchase it out from under us, and there's nothing we can do. A lot of my information comes from current and former employees of the city of Peoria, so my information is pretty damn good. I'm not just sitting here looking figures up on a computer. So I suggest we delay the vote.
Do you want to address each one?
I think the presentation speaks for itself, Mayor. The projects that this money is intended for have been publicly presented. They are the planned projects for this money. As for the 24-hour notice, that's exactly what state law requires. That's what every municipality complies with. We provide the notice. We have a lot of business going on in the city, and things happen pretty rapidly as a city, as you all can probably well imagine. And so we meet our statutory obligations. We've met our statutory obligations for the entire time I've been here and making this publicly available. As our CFO has stated, our tax rate, our property tax rate has not changed in 15 years. And we're very proud of the fact that we manage our expenditures to assure that property tax rates do not increase in Peoria. The fact of the matter is that the bond rating agencies have given us these high bond ratings because of our financial stability and our ability to properly plan for our future. So I have every confidence in the world that we will fulfill the council's intent with an approval of this recommendation.
Thank you for your comments. Shannon Semo?
Hey. So I'd like to thank the gentleman who had presented earlier the Stadium Point. It kind of proves what I was going to say in terms of we're pouring money into projects and there's no guarantee that we're going to get a return on our investment. And the best of intentions, I'm sure everybody had great intentions when the contracts were signed and couldn't predict COVID and everything else that's happened. And now we find ourselves yet again looking at financing a bunch of stuff for a bunch of different companies, industry, other cities, the state, and there is no guarantee on return on investment. And with the current outlook of things, it could go either way, and I'm hoping that it's going to go in a positive direction as opposed to a downturn. You can plan a pretty picnic, but you can't predict the weather. So you can plan all you want and think it's going to turn out great, but you really don't know. And a lot of these projects are projected out 20 years. A lot can change in 20 years. And it seems to me like we're putting all of our eggs in a basket that may or may not return to us. And then what happens if these deals fall apart, like the one by the stadium? If all of these deals fall apart, then we have half-built things, and we've torn up the desert and done all of these things. And because of TSMC and the decision to bring that here, that has affected us substantially because we are so close to Phoenix in the northern part of the city. So while TSMC seems like a great thing, it seems as if, to me, it's causing a lot of problems where their problems aren't necessary. So we're continuing to spend money, and I see that we have a 43% debt rate. And I don't know how that, I don't know how things can't get accomplished eventually without raising taxes. I don't know where the taxes will be raised. I don't have a crystal ball. But to continue to bring more people into the city, at some point or another, the city is going to have to raise more money to compensate for everything that's coming in. You can't run a city like a business. It's not possible because it affects too many people, but you can run it slowly and smartly, and I really wish that everybody would kind of pump the brakes a little bit. I think we're putting all of our eggs in a basket that may or may not turn out because it is a 20-year projected deal. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments, ma'am. Ms. Eva Osuna. Ms. Eva Osuna. You didn't lower it for her.
Yeah.
She's got her own setting.
So I agree with the two speakers that just spoke, but the reason I'm here is, and I understand that you did your statutory obligation, but what about the obligation to the residents? I called city clerk's office yesterday, where is the agenda? I want to be able to see the agenda sooner than 24 hours before it's posted. I had a few hours to call my little network. Nobody knew anything about this. I remember speaking to my council person about a little blip about a bond back in January at the budget meeting that was a public meeting. And it just mentioned that there was a possibility. We've had 2 months. Where are the town halls? Where's information meetings? Do you want us to know what's going on? Because that's how you do it. When I was on the Prop 400 committee, we had 12 weeks of meetings, and the plan was presented every week, a different part of the plan, so the residents knew what was going on. I am worried we're going to have this bond we're going to have to pay for. You're also advocating for West Mech. That's another bond. And the school district wants a bond. So I don't even want to look at my property tax form because it's going to be unbelievable. And this is, to me, almost the start of gentrification. You're going to make people move out of their homes because we won't be able to afford the taxes. So we need for you all to understand that you are working for us. We want to know, you want us to support you as a city and representatives, then inform us. Let us know what's going on. Had you acted on the little blip in January about the bond, you had 2 months to present information to us. Thank you.
So just for the council and for the people here, give some highlights here. You're not raising tax rates, correct?
Right,
This
we're not
process?
raising tax rates. The bond is, the debt that we've structured for this is structured based on the current net limited assessed valuation. That limited assessed valuation, just to give some context to it, is running right about 55% of the full cash value, and by state law has the ability to go up to the full cash value, but only by 5% per year to do that. So at the current rate, so at the current net limited assessed valuation, with no growth, with no increase in property values, we can support this debt at the current tax rate. With growth, with increases in property values, we will have additional revenues coming in without changing the rate.
And these, when were these bonds approved originally?
The voters authorized the amounts in 2005 and 2008 at elections.
Okay. Just so we have non-confusion around this, does the West Mech bond or the Peoria PUSD bond have anything to do with the city bonds? Just so
No.
people actually have an understanding of that. Okay. All right. Thank you. Council, do I have a motion to approve agenda item 28R?
Move to approve 28R.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please vote.
Councilmember Finn, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
The motion passes.
Passes 7-0. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for your presentation.
Mayor, the next item on the agenda is agenda item 29R, and it deals with budget amendments for the Lake Pleasant Parkway Loop 303 to Central Arizona Project and Ashler Hills Drive, Lake Pleasant Parkway to 96th Avenue, and a land acquisition. Development Engineering Director Jeff Curran is going to give us a presentation on the construction activities related to the Peoria Innovation Core that necessitate this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Darwin. Mayor, members of the council, appreciate your time tonight. If you recall back on 12/17, you authorized us to enter into an IGA with the State Land Department to facilitate the zoning and then the subsequent disposition of state trust lands in North Peoria, specifically, in this case, the PIC. In an effort to expedite construction, we're moving along pretty quickly on this to try and activate this parcel that we're in the process of working with state land on. There's a number of projects that are well advanced in design, and we're at the point now where we need to start negotiating acquisition of rights-of-way from the state. This request is to approve a budget amendment advancing funding of $15.3 million to acquire that right-of-way. This would be advancing from our capital improvement project, our program, the next 10-year program. So we're advancing it to this year so we can start that acquisition process. Principally, it's for these projects I've listed here: Lake Pleasant Parkway, which Sean mentioned, Ashler Hills, which is from LPP to 96th Avenue, 96th Avenue from Loop 303 to the CAP. This is what we're calling the Zone 5E and 6E Reservoir and Booster Pump Station, and then a associated well field. Real quickly, I'll cover these. I think you've all seen these slides previously, but just to recap, LPP, the 303 to the CAP, that's going to be a 4-lane section. It'll include the roadway, drainage, water, wastewater, our typical infrastructure. Ashler Hills, this is an extension from LPP to the future 96th Avenue, once again, including roadway, drainage, water, sewer, reclaimed water. 96th Avenue, which the extension from the Loop 303 up to the CAP, once again, including roadway, drainage, water, sewer, the whole 9 yards. The Zone 5E, 6E, we've got to build a reservoir and a booster pump station to serve these areas up here. This will include the reservoir, disinfection, all the appurtenances that go with that. Obviously, all of these projects are going to come back in front of you as we move down the CIP process. This conversation is simply about advancing some funding to start acquiring the right-of-way. We see some real benefit in constructing these projects somewhat simultaneously. We get some cost savings in that by doing so. This land, as you know, is located in undeveloped property within state land department's purview. We are proposing to start the acquisition process now, so we will be ready to construct in fiscal year 26 and then moving forward. It's important to note that these land acquisition costs will be reimbursed at the land auction. Whether we purchase it or a developer purchases it, those costs that we're asking to advance will be reimbursed to the city. And in fact, in the IGA, those costs, or the right-of-way costs, are actually described as deposits. So these costs will be reimbursed to us upon auction, whether we're the successful bidder or it's a developer or developers. So staff's recommendation is to approve this budget amendment in the amount of $15.3 million from contingency to support these PIC-related projects as we've generally outlined. And again, this is just to advance those funds. The subsequent CIP projects will have reductions of that budget amount associated with what we're asking to be advanced. So with that, I know that was quick, but any questions?
Any questions, council? Council, do I have any further discussion? Do I have a motion to approve agenda item 29R? Councilor, yes.
So I noticed something's left off, so I want to correct that through, and I would like to move to amend 29R. It actually lists 2 of the projects, but the slides actually show 5 projects. I want to make sure that we're all tight on everything we're saying, so we're completely straightforward with everything. Everything lines up. So I actually wrote it out, so I make sure we did it correctly, because I want to make sure everything is correct as this is. So I'd like to amend item 29R to read as follows. Approve a budget amendment in the amount of $15,300,000 in advance funding to be used as a deposit to secure rights-of-way in the Peoria Innovation Core for those projects described in the fiscal year 2026 to 2035 capital improvement plan as follows. Lake Pleasant Parkway, the Loop 303 to the CAP was already stated. Ashler Hills Drive from Lake Pleasant Parkway to 96th Avenue, that's already been stated. The three that were left off, I'm adding. 96th Avenue, Loop 303 to the Central Arizona Project Canal. The Zone 5E and 6E reservoirs and booster pump stations. And lastly, the Agua Fria West Recovery Well Project. And if the amendment, if accepted, puts us in line with the actual project and the actual slide you just showed, so everything aligns nicely. So.
Do I have a second on the amendment? Thank you. Please vote to adopt the amendment.
Councilmember Finn, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Motion passes.
Passes 7-0. Thank you. Now, do I have a motion to approve agenda number, item 29R as amended?
Mayor, I will go ahead and propose we accept item 29R as amended.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Please vote.
Councilmember Finn, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
And it
Motion
passes 7-0.
passes.
Thank you. I now recognize City Manager Henry Darwin to introduce 30R.
I noticed Kevin was wearing a bow tie today, so I knew he had a presentation to make at some point this evening. So, of course, we do have Deputy City Manager Kevin Burke here, and he's going to discuss and seek adoption of an ordinance to amend the development agreement between the city and Lake Pleasant Heights. Kevin, please.
Thank you, Manager Darwin, Mayor, City Council. Come before you tonight to talk about the Mystic Lake Pleasant Heights Development Agreement. Now, normally you would say, why is the Deputy City Manager in charge of finance and operations presenting a development issue? The reason being that a couple years ago, Katie Gregory, the DCM, was leading this charge, and we said, oh, this will just take a couple more weeks to a month, and so I'll just carry it forward before the new folks start. And so 2 years later, here we are, ready to go, and so you can see why I'm not negotiating development agreements. So that being said, however, the 2 years has given us a great deal of flexibility as we've gone through and new things have come up and been able to resolve, and so we are ready to move forward with this. So to start, I'll use these terms interchangeably. Mystic, also known as Lake Pleasant Heights. Lake Pleasant Heights is the formal name on the planned community development title, but you also saw Mystic at Lake Pleasant Heights as the formal title to the CFD. So they're often used interchangeably in this. Again, the area, as you saw, is just to the north, northeast of Estancia and directly east of Estancia North. It's bisected by the CAP Canal. That's the blue line that you see making its way through there. And then El Mirage really serves as the north-south arterial traffic corridor that really forms the west side of the property boundary there annexed. The property was incorporated, annexed, and the initial DA was 1993, so we're dealing with a fairly old original agreement, but it has been amended over time. The PCD and what they labeled the original DA, even though there had been one since 1993, was established in 2005, and then a partial amendment to and restatement of the DA happened in 2016. So what you have before you today is the first amendment to the partial amendment to and the restatement of the development agreement. And you can thank the attorneys for the layering of the language. There are 4 parties on here, and so we negotiated with one group on behalf of the 4 parties, and so that kept it very simple and moved it right along. So why would we do an amendment? 3 primary reasons that we're looking at here. The first one is to clarify the triggers and timelines for the neighborhood parks. This really provides us a good deal of predictability for the existing residents and makes sure the entitlements are clear for those that are coming into the area or into these neighborhoods. Second is it ties vertical construction north of the CAP to the El Mirage Bridge. This is important. The circulation plan and the secondary access required the El Mirage Bridge to be constructed. This really secures when and how that's going to happen. And lastly, improves fire responses while minimizing operational costs. So I'll get into each of these in a little bit more detail. So in terms of the neighborhood parks, there are 2 parks required by the development agreement. They were required in the previous development agreement. This is just, again, clarifying time and triggers. There's one south of the CAP and one to be constructed north of the CAP. The developer is required to dedicate approximately 27 acres to the city of Peoria, 18 of which must be usable. So it's not just drainage area, but level land that we can actually put the park amenities on. The question mark that was unclear was kind of when it commenced and when it needs to be completed. So the amendment states that the construction will start at the 976 building permit. That is expected to occur sometime in about the next 15 months, next fiscal year. So that is expected to kick this off, and it must be completed within 18 months. The development is eligible for impact fees, but that is the only city funding. There was some question a couple years ago in the budget documents about funding for parks, this one in particular. Again, the development agreement already said this is the responsibility of the developer. There was no need for the city to be adding additional funds because it was their responsibility, kind of that growth pays its own way type of element. We are close enough to the kickoff of this park construction that we know what it'll include. It'll include a lighted field. That's the big square on kind of the southern part. That's a lighted multi-purpose field. It has playgrounds from different age groups. It has ramadas. It has a bathroom. And then it also has some lighted courts. You can see basketball and pickleball in there. So a good amenity that is coming in the very near future here. The north side, and I don't have it on the slide, has a similar arrangement. Their trigger is the 761st building permit. And then again, they have 18 months to complete that when that one occurs. All right, moving on to fire services. Both Mystic and Vistancia North, or North Point, were each obligated to build a fire station. Obviously, these were negotiated at a time where they really weren't happening at the same time, and they made those obligations. Once everything has now come together, you can see we've completely overlapped the two fire stations. The fire stations are literally within 3 minutes of each other, creating a lot of overlap that is very inefficient when it costs almost $3 million a year to run a fire station. You want to make sure that you're spreading them out, getting the 5 minutes on each section to get the best efficiency of service. And so if you look at those two circles on the top part, again, there's the overlap of service responses. We picked a site that is right in the middle of the two. It's at the corner of Estancia Boulevard and White Peak Drive. Again, that then puts it in the middle so that our desired response times are then the circles in each direction and cover both developments. So a very efficient way to go forward. Those can be, again, the land and the construction are financed with impact fees. So obviously that's a bit of a benefit since we're going from 2 to 1. In exchange, we saw an up in the operational requirement that Mystic will contribute to pay the operation costs of the fire station for the first 4 years of its existence. So that's 15 firefighters, that's the fuel, that's the maintenance, that's all expenses. Now, when we started the agreement, it was 2.4. It's bumped up a little bit to about 2.9 in next year's budget. So the city will pay the difference, but that delta is pretty small relative to 2.4 million for 4 years of paying those costs. Mystic also will buy the fire engine. Again, they're eligible for impact fee reimbursement for that. But the fire engine has been ordered. Unfortunately, it has about a 2-year lead time, so we'll get it just in time for when the fire station opens, most likely. So that's fire services. Tells you a little bit about that. And then the last portion of the agreement was in relationship to the bridge. And two really big parts about this. Certainly one is the fact that no homes north of the CAP can be constructed till the bridge is complete. This is again to make sure that our fire services can get across in a timely manner from that south entrance into it. But more importantly, staff had candidly some concern that the developer could finish the development south of the canal and not advance north because the inflation associated with this bridge has been pretty tremendous. Remember, this agreement's been in place since 2016. The CFD started in 2020, as did a lot of the construction. The COVID and subsequent inflation has really spiked the cost of this bridge to the point where impact fees and CFD are not likely to recover the full cost of it. So there was a real concern about would this bridge be completed, and so wanted to tie some arrangements to make sure that was happening, and so this development agreement certainly helps in that capacity. Second, it's also critical to the traffic circulation to the north. We continue to add folks more over on the Vistancia side, but it's still important to have two paths of entrance and exit egress to the community. This provides that, so it's a very important element there that we want to make sure goes forward. And lastly, the design is above minimum standards. You can put just a straight concrete slab across the water, but there's a standard and a brand that's come with that northern development, and so this agreement makes sure that they're adding those amenities to it that are in keeping with the neighborhood. So those are the three primary elements to the adoption, or to the amendment, and so these are achieved by adopting ordinance 2025-10, which is a first amendment to the partial amendment to and the restatement of the development agreement between City of Peoria, Lake Pleasant Heights, Group 3 Properties, Noranda Properties, and Avante Lake Pleasant Holdings. Any questions, be happy to answer.
Councilor Bullock. Councilor Bullock? Oh, was that from earlier? Oh, your book hit it. Okay, never mind. No worries. Any other discussion from council? Nope. Can you go back a couple slides?
Yes, sir.
Back. So with the two, and then the third is proposed. So we have one firehouse already there. Second's coming. Third is proposed, Saddleback.
Yes, sir.
All the way up.
The circles that you see kind of on the southernmost part, that is 196 that's already in existence. This would be 198, which would serve in the middle, and then, yes, Saddleback comes along, and that would go to the north. So again, we're setting them so that their span is both north-south but east-west, which really typically is covering the width of these developments. It's more the north-south component that we're trying to cover.
Okay. And then in the Saddleback location, we're putting the public safety combination, right, of police and fire?
Yes, the Saddleback, that is, obviously, they have some requirements associated with their agreement, both the original and some of the proposed, both from a temporary standpoint and a final facility.
Awesome, thank you. I know you've been working on this for some time, so.
It's been a chore.
Yeah. All right, I don't have any speaker requests on this. So council, do I have any further discussion? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve agenda item 30R?
To approve 30R.
Do I have a second? Second. Please vote.
Councilmember Finn, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now recognize City Manager Henry Darwin to introduce 31R.
Thank you, Mayor. We have Development and Engineering Director Jeff Curran again with us to discuss the possible action to amend the city code allowing fiber optic communication services to be installed in public rights of way. I see Ben Ganados is here with him as well.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Ben.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Ben Ganados with Development and Engineering. I'm here with my director, Jeff Curran. We're going to present the fiber optic communication systems legislation, which is an amendment to Chapter 23 of the City Code. 2 years ago, we were asked to develop legislation governing fiber optic broadband providers to provide a pathway for more competition in the marketplace. But the ultimate goal was to provide our citizens, our residents and businesses with more choices for broadband internet services. You may remember last March, we were here before you with a plan to develop that legislation and new form of licensing. We highlighted the fact that there was no federal or state legislation on the subject matter at the time. And our interim solution of utilizing a telecommunications license like many other cities to address the industry was just inadequate. By May of last year, we actually achieved that goal, drafted up a legislation. We're about to prepare it for council. And the FCC threw us a bit of a curveball. They issued a decision that became effective in July of last year that they categorized fiber optic broadband internet as telecommunications. So we had to take a step back, reassess our strategy, reevaluate the law. Since that time, we've been working with other municipalities, providers, to get an insight on how to draft this legislation in line with that decision. December 17th study session, we provided you an update, how we were progressing on the legislation and our plan to bring the legislation forth for you the first part of 2025. Mayor and council, we achieved that goal once again, and we have the legislation before you. Now let me get into the purpose of the legislation itself. So the ordinance will regulate fiber optic communication systems and services and will require providers to comply with all city engineering standards so our residents, businesses, and roads are protected, and provide the city with legislative enforcement mechanisms to hold the providers accountable and ensure they quickly repair any damage to city right-of-ways or facilities. Most importantly, and in line with council goals, the legislation will increase market competition and hopefully lower prices, and in turn provide residents and businesses once more choices in broadband services, more than they have today. It's going to establish license fees and ensure our residents and businesses don't have to shoulder the costs of providers working in the right-of-way and providing these services. Furthermore, multiple providers and increased fiber optic broadband infrastructure throughout the city will future-proof the city, bolster business access and attraction. Let me get into the amendments themselves. First, providers will have to complete and submit a license application, which will be thoroughly reviewed by our staff. Each license term will be for a duration of 5 years, and providers will be subject to the following license fees. Now, keep in mind, our right-of-ways and roads have value, so the city should be adequately compensated for the use thereof. So until such time providers earn revenue, they will pay an annual minimum fee. We'll refer to that as the AMF throughout this presentation. The AMF is based on the number of subdivisions within the licensee's service area. For instance, actually, once they start earning revenues, they'll transition over to a percentage of gross revenues approach if the revenues exceed the AMF. If they don't, they'll remain with the AMF methodology. For instance, if they're an ISP providing internet access services to the public, it'll be 3% of gross revenues. If they're contracting out the use of their facilities to third parties, it'll be 6% to gross revenues. Keep in mind, all these annual fees will increase by the CPI index annually. Also, with this legislation, there's an incentive for providers to get into new residential developments, to work with new developers, to get their lines in the ground prior to asphalt being laid and the streets being completed. Therefore, they don't have to go back and tear up the streets again. The incentive is that we'll waive their annual fees until such time as the developer pulls 51% of their permits. In line with this, we're going to bring forward a fee ordinance amending Chapter 27, Table 27-7 of the City Code to adopt these annual fees. There is a 60-day notice requirement by statute. So with the timing of that council break in July, we're looking at August for the fee ordinance, maybe first meeting in August. Also, along with the newly adopted annual fees, will be micro-trenching fees. This is a new method utilized by providers to quickly get in the ground, lay their line in the city's rights-of-way. License fees will be collected by the Finance and Budget Department. Next steps, we're going to finalize a formal license and license application in line with this legislation. By late May, early June, we should be issuing licenses to providers who had their applications approved. Again, the 60-day notice for fees will be posted tomorrow. In August, you'll see the fee ordinance come before you for approval for the annual fees and the micro-trenching fees. There will be updated internal city policies and procedures, and we're going to conduct staff training to get them up to date on the legislation. Before I get into questions, I want to thank a few people. Councilmember Edwards, you've been working with us for 2 years on this, meeting with providers, meeting with us, providing your feedback and insight, so it's helped drafting this legislation. Thank you again. We want to thank cities we worked with. We've been working with cities valley-wide, even Albuquerque, New Mexico. I've talked to them recently, getting insight of how they're handling the providers. And also thank the providers themselves, like Google, Gigapower, Novus Fiber, Vexus Fiber. I believe Will Novak for Google is here today. Their insight into the industry has been extremely helpful in drafting this legislation, so we thank them for their time. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Councilor Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for all your work, Ben and Jeff. So I have a question. So why did the city, I know the city issued telecommunication licenses to fiber companies in the past. So what's the difference between that and what this new legislation, how do they differ?
Telecommunications is a good question, Mayor, Councilmember Edwards. The telecommunication license was meant for telecommunication services, as we know them today, as defined in statute. It didn't really account for internet services or broadband services or data services. When the FCC released the decision, that brought broadband internet services into the mix with telecommunications. So Using that telecommunications license like we did in the past as an account for providers that are not doing telecommunications, or they're simply doing data services, or they're contracting out the use of their facilities to third parties. So it just was an inadequate method. Now, we're still using those telecommunication licenses for some providers. Matter of fact, Novos was just approved tonight on consent. They're a telecommunications provider and also providing internet services. So the residents already have another choice out there. Shortly behind that will be Vexus Metronet, and that'll be a May 13th meeting. Again, a telecommunications provider, and they can provide internet service under FCC's decision, so they fall under the telecommunications license.
Thank you. So my next question is, so I've been reading quite a few articles in the paper over the last couple of weeks, and then actually had phone calls from counterparts in other cities, and they kind of issued a little bit of a warning to what steps are we taking to make sure that when these providers go into the streets, that they're leaving our streets in the same condition that they were before they started laying their equipment.
Yeah, Council.
Because that's a major concern, that, we want to make sure that our streets are in the same condition before they leave the area.
Certainly, yeah. Mayor and Councilmember Edwards, it's a great question, and it's something we are quite concerned about, and I know my counterpart, Ron Hummels, is equally concerned about it from a public works standpoint. Anytime you cut open a street, no matter how well you patch it, no matter how well you deal with it, you introduce a potential for accelerated wear, accelerated failure. So we're concerned about it. That's part of what's driving some of the fee structures, and I know, there has been some pushback about the fees, but the fact of the matter is, we are allowing use of our streets, and more particularly allowing use within our pavement in many cases, and so we want to be able to protect our ability to ensure that we maintain a level of service on those streets. We also are going to have very tough criteria around requirements. We've already got standard details in place for micro-trenching. I can tell you that Dan Nissen and myself are quite conservative when it comes to protecting our streets. So it is something we're concerned about, something we're paying attention to. A number of jurisdictions, to your point, have had some concerns and have had some projects that probably haven't gone quite as well. So we are going to be very finicky about that.
So what safeguards so do we have inspectors that are going to go back after the work's done to sign off on it before we let them move on? Because again, I'm concerned that they're going to come in and do the work, and then they're going to be gone, and then we're going to be stuck paying the cost of fixing the street that they messed up.
Yeah, so not only are we going to have the robust permitting and standards in place that they have to comply with, we have inspectors that are and will be trained up, and they will be out monitoring the work, and certainly we will not be accepting projects without them meeting our rigid standards. So we'll do everything we can to protect our infrastructure. That's our number one obligation.
All right. Thank you.
Councilor Bullock.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Ben. Nice to meet you. We've been chatting on phone and email for several hours. I'm going to kind of co-opt this just for a second, because I know there's a lot of potential misunderstanding what a council member does with staff whenever there's something complicated or something that has to come before, whether it's a bond or whatever. Sometimes there's a perception that we just vote whatever. How many hours did you and I spend and Councilmember Edwards spend, even though I understand this world, I'm in the data center fiber optic world, I've negotiated fiber contracts for my data center, not at your level, but how many hours to go back and forth reading the contract, arguing on behalf of our citizens, our districts for changes to be made, whether it's roads, whether it's going back, several hours on every single thing. And I just, again, appreciate what you did to help. But before it even gets here, we've already spent several hours arguing the point and making sure that our constituents are protected from a financial point of view, from a legal point of view, and not just show up and vote willy-nilly. So thank you for putting in the effort, and thank you, Councilman Edwards, for spending the time with me to go through the contract. Let me nitpick some pieces, kick some things out, and have you go back to developers and make changes to protect my district. And then finally it finally gets here, and it's an educated vote. It's not just a, hey, whatever I feel. So thank you for giving me the time, because I know I took many of your hours that you probably didn't want to have time for. So thank you.
I'm happy to assist.
All right.
Mayor and Councilmember Bullock, I'd like to speak to that. I can attest that Ben and Dan Nissen probably have hundreds of hours invested in this particular legislation. It has been a heavy, heavy lift. There's not a lot of antecedent legislation out there. I mean, we drafted a bit behind the City of Phoenix. I think our legislation is fairly consistent with the City of Phoenix, but this has been a very, very heavy lift. There's been a lot of input from council, so we appreciate your expertise as well. This has been a hard lift for Ben and a number of folks, so.
Would add to that, I do that standing on the shoulders of an awesome team that we have in our department, our director. Our DCM, Mike Faust, Mike Dines from the city attorney's office has been invaluable with his advice, his knowledge on the subject matter. It couldn't have been done without him. Dan Eason, our all-knowing sage in engineering, has been invaluable, so thank you.
Well, he's been here forever, he should.
Yes. I think he's hiding back there somewhere. He didn't want the attention, but he's back there somewhere.
He's like over your shoulder. Yeah, that's awesome. Really appreciate everybody's efforts on this. Counselor, do I have any further discussion at all?
I will motion, Mayor.
Okay.
Second.
So, I'll have a first and a second. No other discussion. Please vote.
Councilmember Finn, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Motion
And it
passes.
passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now recognize City Manager Henry Darwin to introduce 32R.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, the last item on our regular agenda this evening is a rezone for downtown. We have before us the Planning and Community Development Director, Chris Hawkes, who's going to present a recommendation for rezoning this section of downtown to unify the zoning within the downtown area. Take it away, Chris.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Darwin, and good evening, Mayor and Council. Item 32R tonight, this is a city-initiated rezone of approximately 5 acres, which comprise the Osuna Park and what we'll call the Washington Street parcels. The Washington Street parcels include some vacant land, land that's going to be soon to be the Caldwell County Barbecue and the Lou City Firehouse. So with the exception of the Lou City Firehouse, all of the land you see here on the screen are city-owned. So the purpose tonight, as we discuss this request relative to the zoning in the downtown core, you will see that these parcels are really an island among the downtown core zoning. So the current zoning that we have in place is really a relic from a past economic development initiative. And the effort tonight is to attempt to unify these parcels, the zoning for these parcels, with the rest of the downtown core so that we have consistency in development standards moving forward. But before I get into the rezone, I think it's always a great opportunity to step back and provide a status report on several downtown activities. While there have been several efforts over time to position the area, I think we're starting to see some visible and positive momentum here that we believe will further catalyze the redevelopment of downtown. So if we look at the first one, Caldwell County Barbecue, we had our groundbreaking earlier this month for the construction of the new 4,600 square foot barbecue restaurant. The site's been fenced off and construction will start soon. We're hoping for an end of year, first part of next year opening on that one. On the second one, the Jefferson Place, that's the northwest corner of 83rd and Madison. That's modeled after the Churchill in downtown Phoenix. This is intended to be a sort of an incubator for dining and retail space. Currently it's in design and we're looking at a completion of next summer sometime. On the private side, if you think about 3 Peoria Place, this is all the formerly vacant land east of City Hall. Of course, there's been a lot of construction activity in the last several years. There's been a production of 400,000 square feet of business park space that's in place. And now we have a number of residential units that are under construction, up to 600 units under construction. The first units are soon to hit the market. The one that we're also excited about is item 4. This is the former Smitty's property. It got rezoned a few years ago by the Overland Corporation. This is what is now referred to as Peoria Gateway. But this was approved for up to 200 multifamily units, but it would improve the gateway coming into downtown. We issued site plan approval last year. In March, we issued at-risk grading permits for the project, and currently we're reviewing both building and civil construction plans. So that project is going forward. That's good news here. We also approved some code modifications. Now, this is probably the least sexy part of this, but it's all important in trying to position downtown. You'll recall in December of last year, we updated our sign code allowances for the downtown core, and what that did was provide a little more flexibility and opportunities for more dynamic and artful sign opportunities, something that support a Main Street environment that we're trying to accomplish in downtown Peoria. We also updated the downtown zoning districts earlier this year in January. Those were approved by council, and really that was a refinement of the use standards and some of the development requirements there. And so finally, this item, this is a rezoning. Again, this is more of a housekeeping effort, but it's all part of all of the various items to position downtown Peoria. But just to take a step back for a second, and if we look at what we refer to as the downtown core, this is the original town center. Generally, it is bounded by Grand Avenue in the east, Monroe Street on the south, 85th on the west, and Peoria in the north. So you look at the screen here, and you'll see areas in orange and red. So back in 2005, the city identified new downtown zoning districts and rezoned all of downtown. And so the effort there was to ensure that the specific area plan that undergirded this area, it called for a certain character and urban form that would reinforce walkability, reinforce small storefronts, and the pedestrian realm. So we had to have those standards in place to accomplish that when the redevelopment occurred. So when you look at the red areas that are centrally positioned along 83rd Avenue in Washington, DCM means downtown commercial mixed use. It's a commercial forward mixed use zoning district. And then in the areas in orange, which are today residential, it's downtown residential mixed use. It's a residential forward district, but there are some limited opportunities for some limited commercial or small scale commercial activities there. As I mentioned, in 2025, earlier this year, these zoning districts were updated. So now we have both the commercial mixed use and the residential mixed use. So if you look at the map, you look at the red and the orange, you'll notice in the middle by Grand Avenue, you've got the area that, if you can kind of see the dashing, it's zoned PAD, planned area development, and there's a small part of the park zoned general agricultural. So that's the subject of tonight, and I'll talk a little bit about how these parcels came to be zoned as PAD and ag. This all stemmed from a economic development initiative. Back in 2007, there was a proposed ground lease agreement with a private developer for both of those non-contiguous areas. And so the idea at the time was for restaurants and retail within the park along Grand Avenue, and also some retail development along Washington Street, along those Washington Street parcels. This initiative, of course, never materialized. However, the zoning, the rezones that were accomplished in support of that effort had already been placed, and so they endure to today. So with the PAD that exists today, I mentioned that it covers the barbecue restaurant. While the use and development standards within the PAD, they're similar to the downtown mixed-use districts. They don't have the benefit of the new sign standards or the updated zoning requirements that we put in place. So they are deficient in those areas. So tonight, what we're doing is we're just asking to return those areas back to the downtown commercial mixed-use zoning district that are adjacent to the site for consistency moving forward. I want to note too that this is really a paper exercise. This has no impact on the disposition of Osuna Park. All it does is just change the zoning and development standards that would apply to that and the Washington Street parcels. The code requires certain public noticing requirements for rezones, which includes the following. We send out a notice of application to all property owners, notice of hearing, and they go to all property owners within a 600-foot radius and all HOAs within a mile. And as you can see, we always publish a legal ad and post the site in accordance with the city requirements. We're also required to hold a neighborhood meeting, and that one was held on February 5th, 2025 at the community center in downtown. We did have one attendee present in addition to the Vice Mayor Crawford and staff as well. And that person was just interested in learning more about the rezone, didn't have any concerns about the rezone in particular, but wanted to speak about unrelated parking conditions relative to that person's residence. The item next went to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a public hearing that was held on March 6th. That one attendee of the neighborhood meeting also attended this meeting and spoke of similar concerns on parking in the downtown area. Otherwise, though, we didn't have anyone present in support or opposition to the case. And after deliberation, the commission did recommend by a 4-0 vote approval to the city council. To date, we haven't received any correspondence in support or opposition. Mayor and council, my last slide, the findings, the key findings. The rezone unifies the zoning development standards in the downtown core. It conforms with the underlying Old Town specific area plan. And as I mentioned earlier, it does create that consistency and clarity that we're looking for the downtown redevelopment. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Council, do I have a motion to approve agenda item 32R?
Move to approve as approved and recommended by our Planning and Zoning Commission.
Do I have a second? Do I have a
Second.
Please vote.
Councilmember Finn, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Motion passes, Mayor.
Thank you, and it passes 7-0. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Brisket by Christmas. Report from the city manager. I now recognize City Manager Henry Darwin.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, I just have a few things to report this evening. First, on March 30th of 2025, the Public Works and Water Services Department received full reaccreditation by the American Public Works Association for the 5th time. This accreditation formally verifies and recognizes that the agency is in full compliance with the recommended management practices that they set forth. I also want to mention a pretty amazing event that happened recently at our Paloma Community Park. On April 5th, an individual experienced a medical emergency on the Paloma Park softball fields. Recreation assistants Robert Bielman and James Goularte with the youth sports immediately responded, grabbed the nearest automated external defibrillator, or AED, and started CPR. Emergency services were called, and the individual was transported from the scene, awake and breathing. Thanks to having an AED available nearby and knowledge of CPR, these staff members likely gave this individual more time for medical professionals to help arrive and may have saved his life. Really amazing story. And it goes to show the quality of the people that we employ here at Peoria. Also want to mention that the retail developer Common Bond won the 2025 RED Award for the best retailer developer of the park at P83. As I've heard today during discussions about P83, these 3 restaurants are located on Paradise Lane, adjacent to the Port Peoria Sports Complex, and they have been opened since February and have been a great addition to the area. Something to mention about our Rio Vista Park. The Veterans Memorial Wall was updated recently to include 30 additional panels with room for an additional 450 names. This expansion allows Peoria to honor our veterans in a meaningful ceremony on Veterans Day each year. And I know that former council member Patena, this was one of his projects that he reminded us that we needed to pay attention to. And I know Councilmember Stokes shares that interest. I also want to mention something related to our continuing efforts to make working with the city easier. As we probably all know, contractors rarely use computers anymore and operate, just like most of us, and operate almost solely from their personal devices. We have just recently launched a new application from our Development and Engineering Department that will allow any permit holder to quickly and easily access their permits, to schedule inspections, to see the results of those inspections, to view their permit history, to view any associated documents, and request inspections, and much more. This is a great example of strides departments are making towards service enhancements that will make doing business with the city more efficient and timely. I also want to mention Arbor Day and Earth Day. Arbor Day is my daughter's favorite holiday for some reason. But our Parks and Recreation Department hosted a recent events to celebrate Arbor Day and Earth Day. Arbor Day celebrations were attended by the Vice Mayor Crawford, as well as about 30 Peoria High School students, and a new tree was planted in Sundance Park. For Earth Day, this past weekend, the department hosted a riverbed cleanup project within the New River Wash at Rio Vista. 41 volunteers removed over 60 bags of trash, and 5 15-gallon trees were given away to lucky volunteer participants to take home and plant. And then lastly, I have a short video here about our most recent spring training season. Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have for this evening.
Awesome, thank you. Report from Youth Council Liaisons. Sarah?
The Youth Advisory Board had volunteers at both the Easter event last weekend and the Relay for Life event at Centennial High School, and also supported the Arizona Council for Economic Education, in which board members went to the City of Peoria AM and PM programs and provided financial literacy activities for their older students. During these visits, over 100 students participated and gained a better understanding of saving money and the importance of having a budget. And the board members went to 9 schools, which were picked throughout the city. Thank you.
Manya?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So Sarah pretty much summed up most of what we've been doing, but recently the Youth Advisory Board has been working with Tomorrow We Vote to hold our second voter registration drive at all of the Peoria Unified School District high schools. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to take a 5-minute recess. We have probably about 40 minutes of speakers, and we've been here since 3, so we're going to just take a 5-minute recess, and we'll get right back, okay? That's my pre-warning gavel.
Before the hammer lays down.
All right. So next on the agenda is call to the public. As a reminder, each speaker shall refrain from personal attacks, foul, or abusive language, and will maintain a civil and courteous manner and tone. Members of the audience shall respect the rights of others and will not create noise or other disturbances that will disrupt or disturb the meeting. By state law, the council is not authorized to discuss or take action on any issue raised by public comment until a later meeting. With that, Mr. John Forsyth.
All right. I'm John Forsyth. Here again to say that we don't live in a democracy, a republic here in Peoria, because we're not doing the will of the people. You're not listening, and that's representative of the number of citizens that are showing up here at the recent meetings. There's a lack of transparency, and while I appreciate that we're doing the 24-hour state minimum, I know we can do better. I know Beck wants a strong government, and he wants the people to listen and follow. It can be demonstrated by he went down to the state to lobby to help pass the Exxon bill, which basically stripped away the Scottsdale rights, the citizens' rights, to vote on the subject. He didn't go down to the state to lobby for the Stolen Valor bill, so he's not on the side of the people. This council is destroying our bedroom community. The council has screwed up a master plan community of Estancia. A former council candidate has already left. You are putting heavy industry into this master plan community next to a school and a retirement community. An industry that can't even tell us what chemicals they're using. We know that ain't right. Again, the limiting of the freedom of speech, a quintessential freedom that Americans have that is revered around the world, is the right to speak out against our government. Now, Beck has tried to shut me down. He called me a liar and not a gentleman at the last meeting. He said, we are nice, inferring that the citizens aren't. Well, democracies can be ugly when you don't listen to us. There were supposed to be two current candidates for mayor here at the meeting, Judy Smith and Art Miller. I want to talk about Art Miller. Again, he's the perfect example of the get in line or resign. Art is an honorable man and not a yes man. He opposed the helicopter. He opposed additional police officers. He suggested the real-time crime center that this city is now taking credit for. But he was asked to dig up dirt on a city employee. Taxes are going to go up. The city budget has exploded. Last year, I spoke of a shakedown of mom and pop businesses to get additional sales tax revenue. Dance studios, car washes, Pleasant Harbor. What other mom and pop businesses are going to be next this year? I know he's going to attack me after I get done speaking. He's going to call me a liar and misinformation. It's his only play. If you want to know if I'm telling the truth, the answer is simple. Go ask any current or former city employee. They'll tell you that I'm 100% accurate in this chamber of the people, and they actually thank me for advocating for them. Have a good night.
Patrick Heifel? Is that correct? Perfect.
I'm Patrick Heisel, a Estancia resident. Before I start, I ask that each of you sitting before me, excuse me, listen intently to what I have to say because it pertains to all of you. While in office, it's your responsibility to meet our expectations. Sometimes those expectations are not met either through incompetence or through malicious actions. Under the law, a person holding a political office has what is called a fiduciary duty to carry out their duties in the best interest of the public. Failure to abide by this requirement can lead to severe consequences, not only for the electorate, but for the person holding office. This city council is not operating in a manner that is conducive to meeting the expectations of the citizens. in Vistancia. Your actions are heading in a direction that can lead to potential contamination of the groundwater, contamination of the air, industrial accidents, etc., which can lead to sickness as well as death because of the close proximity to school and homes. It takes courage to stand up for what you believe. You've been elected to not go with the flow, but to act in the best interests of the citizens. That means to have the courage to stand up for what is right, even if it may not be popular with other members of the council. For Mr. Bullock, nothing can be done to change existing contracts. That's what was in the paper. What is the termination clause of the contract? Are you all working for Amcor or the people of Peoria? You need to make a choice. The contract can be changed. Having done contract law for 40 years, I have negated contracts far larger than anything you have with Amcor, and it's all done through negotiation. It's time for this council to get to work and fix the damage you've done so far. As I said, it takes courage to do the right thing. So do what you know is right. Find an area more suitable for Amcor, which is not Vistancia. Thank you.
Robert, thank you for your comments, sir. Robert Matitich? Matitich? No? M-A-T-E-T-I-C-H? Nope. Like, just in case I was pronouncing that incorrectly. Mr. Steve Riggins?
Let's see, what's up? Sorry to do this to you. It's nice, though. Mayor Beck, Assembly of Peoria, thank you for letting me speak. Steve Riggins, I've been a resident of Vistancia for 6 years with my wife. Love it. I love Arizona. I'm here to speak on the Amcor subject. I've got 40 years of experience in manufacturing, putting plants up, taking them down, moving them, consolidating them. Kind of a world-class or expected task of any manufacturing facility is a risk assessment. And I've done multiple of those. You keep them updated through the years. You're always trying to reduce risk. Typically, it's to your own employees. There's always risk in manufacturing. Something always can happen. It can always hurt people. So with the Amcor being placed in so close to a resident and so close to a school, that I've never placed facilities that close to that, you're going to have to add some additional risks. And the number one risk, and I'm just going to talk about the number one risk, is polluting the water table for 20,000 people. It's a real risk. It's something that should be in Amcor's risk assessment for the site. If you haven't seen their risk assessment for their plant, I would recommend you ask for it. They should have them on all their plants. But this one is unique because it's so close to a residential area, and it's going to be piped into, their wastewater is going to be piped into our reclaimed water, which we use for, repopulating the water table and irrigation. But the problem with this risk is it's so grave, and how you measure risk is how big a problem is it, how likely is it to happen, and what can you do to mitigate it. It's such an egregious risk that the only way you can even address mitigating it is not letting it have any possibility. So one way to do that is not allow them to have any water discharges like TSMC, so they'd have to recycle all of their water. They're using so much water, it's kind of irresponsible for letting any business use that much water in this day and age. Companies are constantly pressed for reducing electricity, water, any resource. So giving them 2 million gallons a day right off the bat is a mistake. And the only way responsibly to mitigate this risk is you just have to relocate it. It cannot be adjacent to schools and residents. So again, I know you guys are in a tough situation. You got a deal going, but like my predecessor says, you've got to do the right thing, and you got to lead. and you've got to help us out here because our city, our town is at risk. So thank you.
Kathy Bartelheim? Oh, Bartelheim. At one point in time, I will promise I will get that correct.
Steve. Good evening. Last council meeting, I addressed our concerns with the PFAS, or forever chemicals that will be released into our air and water. You know, the cancer-causing, developmental delay-causing concerns, et cetera, that you want to install in our backyard. Tonight, let's talk about water usage and Arizona's drought. The current drought began in the late 1990s and has been ongoing for the last 20 years. As of March 31st, 2025, much of Maricopa County has been under exceptional drought and extreme drought conditions. It's not getting better, it's getting worse. The Colorado River system, which provides about 40% of Arizona's water supply, has also been under severe drought conditions since the year 2000. We all received this little flyer from the city of Peoria, stating, "Peoria, water champion, and saving water is wise." The site offers rebate programs such as grass conversion to xeriscape, high-efficiency toilets, in-ground pool or spa removal, and a water conservation kit. What is the council doing to conserve water? If we're in a severe drought, where will the water come from? How long will it be before we run out of water? My son's professors at Cal State Long Beach hammered students relentlessly in his water resources management classes that it is not a matter of if Arizona runs out of water, but when. All 31 parks in Peoria are having a total of 44 acres of grass removed, saving approximately 44 million gallons of water per year. Amcor is slated to use 730 million gallons of water per year. Let me help you visualize what the 2 million gallons of water that Amcor is proposed to use daily looks like. 2 million gallons is roughly 3 Olympic-sized swimming pools. It also is equivalent to 2 football fields covered with 3 feet of water. Let that sink in. That's a hell of a lot of water. If you're asking residents to have parklands taken away and to sacrifice for water conservation, here's Amcor. I've been duped, the group cheerleader. So my neighbors against toxic Amcor and Vistancia, please stand up. I know people had to leave. This is just a tiny percentage of the thousands of people who don't want Amcor in Vistancia. So there is strength in numbers, and I want you to repeat after me. We say no to toxic Amcor.
Thank you for your thank you for your comments, ma'am. So it's okay. It's okay. Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Ms. Doreen Powers.
Mayor Beck, I appreciated at the State of the City address at Trilogy, you expressed disappointment that Amcor more than doubled the size of their factory they told you they were building. And you also wish the city had a more appropriate location for their build. Though just days after, ABC News asked you for a comment after they ran a piece highlighting residents' opposition to Amcor, and you said, I, as mayor of Peoria, along with the city council, continue to 100% support Amcor's plans to build in Peoria. So you 100% support Amcor but maybe have a few regrets? If that's true, I ask you, what, if anything else, could you or city staff have done when Amcor was being recruited to Peoria? What, if anything else, could you have considered before deciding that Amcor was the perfect opportunity to use the city's control of 50 acres in 5 North to compel Vistancia LLC to donate the land specifically for this opportunity over others? What, if any, changes or additions should the city have made when the incentives and consequences were defined in the Amcor agreement? What, if anything, could or should have been done before the city council voted on the agreement? What, if anything, could still be done to ensure Amcor abides by the original size they communicated to you, the city told the residents, and the council voted on? My plea is that each of you honestly consider these questions and ensure that further negotiations with Amcor or other companies will include more protections. Amcor is only 55 acres, and look at the crisis that we are in due to poor planning and poor negotiations. Between North Peoria Gateway and the PIC, there will be close to 9,000 acres that will change Peoria forever. I can't even imagine what could go wrong with that. I ask that city leaders look not just at short-term wins, but consider the long-term risk and impacts to the residents, the environment, city resources, and taxpayer dollars. It is up to you to ensure North Peoria does not become the gridlock of Scottsdale or have the heat and pollution dome that covers the city of Phoenix. It will be our future, but it will be your legacy. What do you want to be remembered for? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Pat Lawley. Pat Lawley.
Mayor Beck and council members, I am Pat Lawley, and I've been a resident of Vistancia for 20 years. We all know that Vistancia is not the proper location for an industrial facility like Amcor. So for Mayor Beck and the council members, I would like to ask each of you to do something for me. When you wake up tomorrow morning and open your blinds or walk out your door, look around your neighborhoods. I'm sure you will see a beautiful blue sky and a clear skyline. That is all we are asking to keep. That is why we all moved to Vistancia. As a Vistancia resident, I hope I can speak for us all. We just want to wake up, open our blinds, or walk out our doors and not see an obstructed view of a 118-foot industrial facility with the potential of harming us. Each and every one of you has the power to make this right, to relocate Amcor to a proper location for an industrial facility. I wish you a safe trip home tonight, and remember what I asked. Open your blinds, walk out your doors, look around. What do you see? I'm sure not an Amcor. Use your power for good. Do the right thing. Relocate Amcor from Vistancia.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Michael Steck. Michael A. Steck? Steek? Nope. Okay. Mike Kelhor?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Mike Kelleher, lived in Vistancia about a year. So for me, this has been a journey of understanding how sensibility can be defied. Even the mayor agreed that the current Amcor site plan doesn't belong in Vistancia. Well, Mayor, you're correct. And when the city annexed Lakeland Village, it couldn't even be there. The 50 linear acres of business park tucked against the power lines allowed light industrial. Imagine a 2.7 million square foot 12-story industrial plant dominating and displacing the commercial automotive corridor, or P83. Sounds ridiculous, right? To rationalize this, the city provided an entitlement slideshow, trying to convince us all that somehow this 50-acre business park entitlement is different. Conveniently, they stopped their slideshow in 2004, then jumped over a decade, ignoring entitlement decisions. Why? Because in 2005, the property owner changed the land use to protect the Vistancia area via the Loop 303 specific area plan. This ensured investors in Vistancia, they had long-term security, protecting the legal promises of development of the commercial core to be a destination commercial hub, not an industrial park. Adhering to this promise and in compliance with the Vistancia, Vistancia PCD and the Vistancia Development Agreement requirements of general plan conformity, the property owner then amended the PCD to match the 2005 established land use of mixed-use commercial and regional commercial. By 2012, governed by the Loop 303 SAP, which was further readopted by the voters, and the PCD industrial entitlements were removed, stripping away any lingering perceived entitlement. However, it appears this downzoning and plan conformity was ignored. Despite state law and city ordinance prohibiting upzoning beyond approved land use, manufacturing was reintroduced as a special use, still requiring a separate site-specific public engagement process. In 2023, when Amcor came to the table, staff simply changed land uses to manufacturing at their will to a permitted use, again in violation of law, contract, and ordinances prohibiting upzoning beyond the general plan. They wanted no public land use process to get in the way. Make no mistake, the Loop 303 specific area plan was readopted by the voters in 2020, and per the master planned area land use is the guiding specific area plan for 5 North. Any upzoning beyond its scope is illegal, unethical, and can only be done by amending both the MPA and Loop 303 land use first before any zoning amendment is legally relevant. Staff has outright ignored the general plan compliance requirement of city code. It is as if land use and land use laws are irrelevant. This can be harmful to both the city and its citizens economically. We are not anti-economic development, but not a single member of this council or residents of the city would approve this monstrosity in their commercial mixed-use area. Imagine going to Park West, enjoying Fleming's or Happy Hour at the VIG, while getting to enjoy a 56-acre, 10-story industrial building. Sounds upscale. Yeah, not really.
Thanks for your comments, sir.
Oh, too bad. Thank you.
Dana Moore.
All right, Mayor, Council, back again. Got a lot of unanswered questions, and I'll get to that at the end of my talk here. How does the city think you can violate the Vistancia Development Agreement, which created protected zoning for Vistancia until October of 2026? This agreement does not allow the PCD to overstep the zoning of the general plan. So like the previous speaker said, that's what you did is illegal. In 2001, in the 2001 documenting of the Vistancia Development Agreement, as well as the 2005 303 Loop Specific Area Plan, the developer and city confirmed this property should be in conformance to the plan. This plan has not been repealed, so how did it get changed? Zoning is residential, mixed-use, commercial, retail, no industrial usage. How can industrial project size be allowed? Over 10 stories and 2 million square feet. The highest building in Peoria in a residential neighborhood next to a school. Where does it say the city can gift over 50 acres of land to a multi-billion-dollar corporation, which violates the gift clause, as you are not allowed as the city to benefit private citizens and companies at the citizens' expense? Pollution, how can you allow this company to put forever chemicals in a water system and only clean up 80% of the water, thus polluting our water plants, which can't even clean the chemicals that are going to be in there? You don't even know what harmful, dangerous chemicals are going to be put into our air supply. How are they going to be emitted into the air? Via smokestacks? Nobody's described how that process is going to be. Water contamination. The contaminated water will not only affect Peoria, but surrounding communities as well. What is the city's plan for lawsuits being filed by people, cities, county, and state when disaster contamination happens? What has the city budgeted for to handle for all the legal costs to defend itself from all violations of existing zoning laws, illegal land giveaway, and not bankrupt the city? All research says the industrial facilities that handle heavy chemicals like this should be located at least 2 miles from the residential light commercial area. TSMC off the 303, look how far away. The city of Phoenix would not allow them be any close to the homes and commercial businesses. So you think that all of you are smarter than the city of Phoenix, who had this giant plant, got it all approved and it's in operation? And how are they gonna transport these hazardous wastes? Who's gonna take this hazardous stuff and go put it somewhere? Our landfills aren't gonna take it. And lastly, the city council and mayor say you won't respond today to all of our questions, but when will you? You said at the next meeting. Well, we've had no response to any of our questions.
Thank you for your
at the
comments,
next
sir.
meeting.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Megan Staub.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. In high school, my friend and I would take a drive up to the Vistancia area for fun. So this was like the early 2000s. Back then, I remember saying to myself, I'm going to live there one day. And 15 years later, I built a house there, and I've been living there happily ever since. The one thing that has bothered me the most about this whole debate with Amcor and Vistancia as it's unfolded is hearing from both people in the community as well as members of the city of Peoria saying, you should have done your research before buying a home, and it has always been zoned this way. In my mind, I just kept thinking that I did do my research. From everything I read and was told, I knew the goal for the commercial core, or now 5 North, was to have a commercial area with office buildings, healthcare, education, residential, some parks, and open spaces. Ironically, it was kind of envisioned to be like what the Axon headquarters is supposed to be like. Never was it heavy industrial with a massive building. So a group developed to find out how could this happen and was it always zoned this way? Short answer is no. It was not always zoned for manufacturing. It was June of 2022 when the city of Peoria passed a minor PCD amendment increasing the FAR by 33% and added language allowing manufacturing. That was 2022. I purchased my home in 2020. Industrial was not supposed to be there. Then in June of 2023, a neighborhood meeting was held in Vistancia as required for city approval of a major amendment. I don't believe there was a neighborhood meeting in 2022 for that amendment. The zoning map that was shown during that meeting indicated that the area Amcor is on to be office and R&D in the parcels where Amcor is. I even remember asking about manufacturing. At that time, as I heard Mike Faust say, there may be some light industrial in the commercial area, but we were told not to worry because it'll be like a small warehouse with no loading docks. So even in June of 2023, we were not getting the full picture of exactly what was happening, even though talks with Amcor were already happening. Was the city concerned of the backlash that they're experiencing now? We were purposely misled by the city. When Amcor was announced of coming to Peoria in November of 2023, the news briefs magically left out the location. Why? Then comes the changing of the square footage from 500,000 to now 2.7 million, and a max of 54 feet to 118 feet tall. Residents weren't told until January of 2025. How long did the city know about this massive change? And why didn't the city do anything to protect the residents' interests? Our group has dedicated thousands of hours into this simply because we love where we live and we knew something wasn't right. It's not. There are agreements in place protecting that area from just this.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Sorry. Thank you. City Manager Darwin, anything? No?
Those are all the comments?
Yeah.
I just want to say a couple of things. I certainly could take the next hour and respond to all of the statements that were made, but I think it's just important to remember a couple of things, and this is directed at the council. I want to assure the council that everything the city has done so far related to the Amcor project is in strict compliance with state law and city code.
Okay, let's pause right there. So let's pause. Again, we talked about this when I was doing some states of the city, across the city, as well as Trilogy. If his time is to speak, just like everybody else, nobody else interrupted the speaker, please have some just commonality about treating people with respect in this, right? Everybody up here, I promise you, is listening to every single statement. And again, just bearing, that's all we ask for. So please continue.
Yeah, Mayor, so, I mean, as the council knows, I've been in government my entire career.
Keep going. Please.
I've worked at every level of government. I've been the director of the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality for 5 years, where I worked for 20. I was the second in charge at EPA for 3 years. I'm a licensed attorney in the state of Arizona. I'm here to tell you that everything the city has done so far related to the Amcor project is in strict compliance with state law and city code. You have me telling you that. The second thing I want to remind you is that there is no further action or vote to be taken by the city council as it relates to the Amcor project. The vote has happened, the approval has been provided, and everything that from this point forward is an administrative process that will be carried out by the city staff. I just wanted to make sure that you all are reminded of this fact as we proceed. Thank you.
So just to reiterate on that issue, because the next part is my communication. Everybody is being listened to, I promise you. Whether you think that you aren't or not, you are being listened to. What you're saying, it does matter. I think some of you, I see some of the faces that were at Trilogy. I think we spent 3.5 hours together, 3 hours, 20 minutes together communicating that. You know, we will continue to stay. I'll continue to answer questions and go down this path. That doesn't mean that every single person is going to like the answer, and that's okay. But treating each other with respect and dignity in this process, that means that we're still trying to solve problems. That doesn't mean, that's not an answer that anybody wants to hear, but we're still trying to solve problems and we're still trying to do certain things. So it is very important for just the overall respect of how commenters or staff or anybody else like that, just like whenever you're up here speaking, we want other people to respect what your speech is as well. So with that, we'll do a mayor's report. Do you have a screen? Oh, is it up? It's not up on that one? Okay. So we have Caldwell County Barbecue groundbreaking that we just broke. This is one of the initiatives that we did for downtown Peoria. I've seen a few comments or commenters about why would Caldwell and why would we actually spend money on downtown Peoria that nobody seems to care about. We'll wait. When I first came on council, the first comment that was made by Councilor Bill Patena was that since 1991, downtown Peoria had been believed that we were going to reinvigorate it. And I think the very first conversations we had were, when do we get to Gilbert? When do we actually look at what other cities have done and gone down that path? Caldwell's was actually one of the 12 different barbecue restaurants that we actually ate at. You don't get this figure by not eating lots of barbecue in this process. And we traveled from place to place and actually met with different restaurateurs to try to bring them. We could still go if you, he's like, why didn't I get to go? Yeah, I know. And the idea was, how do we reinvigorate downtown Peoria and how do we actually get developers to actually start? And that's what's starting. And we're very proud of Caldwell's being a part of this. And the construction and design team that was put into this. So this was the groundbreaking event, which was awesome. Honor Health grand opening is the next item. This is part of a process. This is one of going to be one of the West Valley's premier cancer facilities in the actual all across the West Valley on the side of I-17. from everything from screening to prevention to surgical, outpatient, recovery, rehab. It's absolutely an amazing facility architecturally from the outside, but more importantly, the people inside. I've met with a lot of staff that's here, as well as tried to recruit them to actually hopefully build a hospital. They're one of the 3 that we're actually talking with. And it wasn't, I had the podium for about 10 minutes with them, and we kind of threw out, we should just sign the contract now with them. They've done a fantastic job. They have a total belief system in the patient, which is pretty amazing. And for those of us that have lost people to cancer, this is a great thing for the city of Peoria to have Honor Health bring this with us. The State of the City is next. We did multiple State of the City events. On the main State of the City, we had 550 plus people at the State of the City. I don't know if it was necessarily for me or if it was because we were bringing Postinos. It might have been a little bit of both, but it turned out to be a great facility, great group of people, and really appreciated everybody's time coming and actually listening. And then we actually did multiple events across the city as well, including Westbrook Village, Trilogy, downtown Peoria. So again, really appreciate everybody's time tonight, and thank you for being courteous. Thank you. Have a good day.